1 2 1 2. Hold up. How y'all doing?
It is indeed a pleasure to have this privilege to play here for you. We intend to give you a very fine program, so just settle back, relax,
What's up,
and
Denise?
enjoy the moment.
It ain't a mikagadsden production unless it starts off janky. Good morning. Hey, Christy. Hey, little mama. Oh my God, little mama, you must be selling some art. What's up, Debbie, Denise, Christy, little mama. Hold on, let me get my life together. Let me get my bun life together. How y'all doing? I need to deep condition my hair. All right, cool. Good morning. What's up, Megsy? How you doing? You love my hair. I need a deep, like I am struggling. It's time to wash it. You know how you just kind of, anyway, I appreciate that. Thank you. I love my hair too. All right. LOL, Coach paid me like, okay. All right, cool. Nah, and Nicole, little mama, just thank you. I don't think I say it enough that you know how you set up your art exhibition to benefit people like me, not just me. I know you've supported other area organizations and other factions. I just want to say thank you so much. I think I got like $5 yesterday. Every time I get $5, $10, $20, it really brightens up my day. It goes right back into this stuff, y'all. Just for real, the support matters a lot. So thank you so much, Nicole, for modeling what I'd like to see more of in Charleston. Just leveraging what you got. We're not asking for millionaires to cut checks, right? Quite the opposite. I'm just looking for folks like Lil Mama, like Megsy, like all y'all, everybody in the Twitch chat right now. Y'all hold me down. And you know, you do it in the way that best fits you and your needs and balances. I'm hoping you're balancing priorities, right? And you've made me a priority to some degree, and I appreciate the support. Seriously. Yeah. What up, Rugby? How you doing? All right. Yeah, so today, as you can see, if you got the newsletter, shout out to y'all, for real. Shout out to y'all that been subscribing, new subscribers to the newsletter. I'm gonna do better. I think Australia Fuega kind of put a battery in my back to make sure that the information on how to access either this live stream later on demand or what have you, like there's a need for me to centralize all that information. But shout out to y'all who go to Instagram, go into the bio, use the link tree to access the newsletter, the book club, whatever it is. And thank y'all, because while I do sometimes get transfixed, I become transfixed by unsubscribes. What I have seen is a lot of people from like 2018 unsubscribing, but a lot of new 2021 people, and y'all are opening a newsletter. So from what I know, 22% open rate, 2022, 23% open rate is pretty dope. And y'all are opening the newsletter. Y'all are kind of poking around. So I appreciate this new, fresh following of folks who are passionate, a lot of F's in that, who are passionate. So we're going to talk about in the newsletter. I teased it. Let me just bring it up. Mika, like, bring it up. I'm going to switch the screen up in a second. Let me just pull it up first. All right. And we're going to do a local news roundup too. Try to do a little bit more neater than we did yesterday. Come on, Mika. Where'd it go? Come on. Here we go. Now we're going to switch. What's up, kids? Good to see ya. Yeah. So today, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to focus on Darling Nikki. Y'all like my headlines? I'll be good with the headlines. Yeah, I mean, Prince fans. I know. I'm sorry, Prince fans. I know. You're like, Mika, but Prince is good. We like Prince. I don't know how I feel about Nikki Haley. I got you, but I'm just trying to make the content compelling so people kind of get curious and peek in there and be like, oh, okay, I see her with the puns. I see her. And shout out to Kelly Ray, who's like, yo, you killing it. with the headlines. Thank you. I appreciate it. Kelly Ray, who's not here, but hopefully listening later. How you doing? Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Nikki Haley and her Southern, what I'm calling, I'm coining the phrase Southern Charm Offensive. I'm sure somebody's used that. I'm sure somebody's used Nikki, Darling Nikki as a headline as well. But her Southern Charm Offensive. And by that, what I really mean, y'all know what a charm offensive is, right? It's somebody killing you with kindness. Politicians are really good at that. Southern politicians wrote the book on that shit. Like killing you with kindness, cutting your throat with a smile on your face legislatively. Sometimes back in the day, they used to get away with it. But more often than not, really doling out really stingy policies, really stingy, really anti-worker, anti-black, anti-Asian, anti-immigrant, doling out a lot of that anti-energy, all while, doing it in that very Southern, that traditionally Southern, that patently Southern way, which is with a smile, which is, boys club, good old boys club at that. Like just real, there's a culture of this, right? So we're gonna talk about Nikki. We're gonna talk about, of course, what I didn't talk about yesterday, which kind of dominated somewhat of a news cycle over the weekend, was Nikki finally got an invite. She finally, she groveled her way to Mar-a-Lago. So she finally got it. Is Whiskey Neat watching? I said Mar-a-Lago. I can't say Whiskey Neat's name. That's messed up. But no, she groveled her way to Mar-a-Lago, right? Thank you, Kia. Hey, B-Man, good morning. Yeah. Hey, D. Bartlett. She groveled her way to Mar-a-Lago. Finally went down there to kiss the ring. And so what does that mean? Was it last week or a couple weeks ago we talked about Tim Scott, and of course his ambitions. He's raising money like he's raising money like like crazy. He's raising tens of millions of dollars, right? And so what does that mean? That means what we already know, that Mitch McConnell and the more traditional fuck shit GOP, they're trying to, of course, get the control back, get control of the party back. But their Looney Tunes squad, right? Because they have a squad too, right? Their Looney Tunes squad still has that hold on it, right? But we saw Mitch McConnell position Tim Scott to be like the new. So okay, we're gonna since the left wants to use identity politics, this is them. Since the left wants to use identity politics and trafficking identity politics, we're gonna put up a black man. So they're trying to find, they're trying to use identity. They do identity politics too. That's why Nimrod is so popular or rose to such success in South Carolina. So Tim Scott has been positioned to be like the new era, trying to get away from the Looney Tunes squad on the GQP and trying to get back to the old fuck shit. We don't like the new fuck shit. We don't like the QAnon stuff, but we like the old fuck shit. So sorry for so many F-bombs in the morning. I hope it woke you up though. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the party's positioning, what does Tim Scott's ambitions to run in 2024 for president, how's that been complicated. We've seen recent local reporting on that suggests, and not even just local, I believe national as well, that suggests that Tim Scott is positioning himself, since Trump has definitely been tipping his hand at saying, you know what, I want another go at this grift. I want to raise more millions. I want to play on the emotions of my rabid sycophants and slash supporters. So if Trump is in, and you've heard both Tim Scott and Nikki Haley say that they're pro-Trump, they're all about Trump in 2024. If Trump runs, they're on board. But I think both Nikki and Tim Scott are trying to vie for a vice presidency, to be on the ticket as vice president. I think that's what I'm guessing is who's the best. If Trump is going to run again and continue to grift, okay, Nikki and Tim still want to get in that White House, still have ambitions, maybe being the cardboard cutout next to Trump. I would love. Now, I don't mean this literally. I do not want 4 more years of Trump. Right? By no means do I. I don't think it's entertaining. I don't think it's good for my health. And I'm being dead ass serious. Right? I don't think Trump, 4 more years of Trump it's great for CNN, it's great for MSNBC, it's great for mainstream media, right? It's great for SNL. It's not great. Well, maybe not now because, you know, I don't know. Alec Baldwin is, you know what I mean? But no, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's not good. But so don't take this literally. But I'd love to see fucking Tim Scott stand next to a son of a Klansman and co-sign and show all them gums, smiling, show all them gums with that shitty ass policy. Like, I would just love to see that shit. Like, damn, you really sold your soul for success. You sold your soul to be this proximate. Like, I would love to see it. We already seen the bootlicking, and we already seen the bowing and the scraping from both Nimrata and Tim Scott. So, you know, I don't mean it literally, but it'd be something to see. It'd be a sight to behold. To see a black man be the vice president or you know, to be a vice president, be on the ticket with the son of a Klansman, right? We'll see though. We'll see. Good, not the gums. I'm sorry, his gums are prominent. Okay, I don't think that's unfair. But what we also want to do with this conversation about Nikki Haley, right? What I did was queue up some videos that I think are very important. I want to start, and I think I do this, but I don't think I do it enough. I want to lean into content that is created and features conversations led by either millennials or Gen Zers about contemporary issues. I found that, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, where a lot of these conversations were being filmed or recorded for either institutions or for grassroots organizations, what I found is that a lot of young people are really doing a great job framing a conversation about race, about Asian identity, about Asian solidarity with black communities and other communities, the model minority myth. So we're going to kind of jump into some content that talks about, we're going to talk about Nikki Haley in this more broader sense as to why she likes to cozy up to white power in the South. Like, why is she doing that, right? I might use the phrase pick me often when it comes like to Nancy Macy or people in general, not just politicians who try to appeal to the male gaze, right? And Nikki Haley is a pick me too, right? She's a pick me in that way, not doing it the way Nancy does it with the, you know what I mean, with the tank tops and the standing, you know what I mean, striking certain silhouettes, you know what I mean? You know, we know, especially when she was in District 91, she was doing that shit a lot. All right, okay, we get it. Your dress is tight, we get it. And I'm being real. This is just, some women do that within the government, within politics, not just Republicans either, right? But Nikki has a different type of pick me. She's more so doing that whole model minority myth. And I think when we talk about Nikki Haley, what I've seen the local mainstream press not do is talk about the complexity of her racial identity, right? We don't talk enough. Let me switch up real quick because I'm just talking. We don't talk enough about how that complicates what she does. And so even if I don't have the range or the range to tackle all of it, I'm definitely going to broach the topic and talk about this. So we can't talk about Nikki Haley without talking about, hey, this South Asian person is like really anti-black. How does this happen? And a lot of it is culturally, it's complicated. So we're just going to broach it a little bit, right? What up, Joni? Good morning. You don't see how think a person alive. Oh, yeah. You don't. It says, good morning. I just don't see how they think that person will be alive and healthy. I don't know. Good morning, El J. Thank you for the text yesterday. I hope I answered I was trying to answer. I get not inundated, but sometimes I just try to be more responsive. So hopefully I was responsive, El J. Yeah. All right, so yeah, we're gonna talk about racial identity and Nikki Haley. We're gonna talk about her track record. I finally found the documentary. If y'all been rocking with me for a minute, y'all know that I referenced the documentary where Nikki Haley said some really gnarly things about healthcare policy in the South. Also, let me switch it up real quick, permanently. For the rest of the live stream. Also, I didn't know this. So on November 12th, so 2 days after Meek Miss was over, on November 12th, what's his name? Paul Bauer sat down with some other content creators. I think they're podcasters. I'll find it. to talk about Nikki Haley. Maybe I'm doing it right. Yeah, here it is. Right here, Left Reckoning. Let me bring it up real quick. We're not going to play it. Shout out to this Justin, too. I don't know if Justin's not here yet, right? Or not here yet. But anyway, shout out to Justin who put me on. Like, I didn't know there was this whole genre, like, Southern or like Appalachian. Did I say Appalachian right? Appalachian leftists that like create some dope content like that. Do not get fooled by the accent. Like, it sound like, oh shit. I start listening to some of these like podcasts, and I'm like, oh shit, this Southern drawl, this sound like West Virginia. This don't, and you can't go off that. It's a lot of really dope leftists out here, and I love that, especially when you want to talk about politics in the South. So anyway, I found this. I don't know if this is like per se if they identify as Southern, but I think they do. Left Reckoning. I'm not familiar with the platform, but this one featured this. I'm gonna mute it real quick, and then I'm gonna drag. So yeah, our buddy Paul Bowers from Brutal South, Substack, and many other things, was featured on November 12th, and they talk about Nikki Haley specifically. And I love the way Paul initially in the conversation frames Nikki Haley and who she is, and really makes it clear for people who just know Nikki Haley from mainstream media or maybe national media, right? So we're gonna play a little bit of this interview as well. But let's go ahead and just do a news roundup real quick. I'm gonna leave. No. You know what? Let's see. We could do a tandem thing. I'm trying to do that more often, where I kind of do like a little tandem, go from video to the front page. This is gnarly.
After a boat overturned, leading to hours of crews getting major cleanup in Shem Creek after a boat overturned, leading to hours of crews getting fuel and oil out of the water. News 2's Riley Benson was on the scene as crews responded this morning. He joins us live from Shem Creek. And Riley, the owner of that boat, calling it a bump in the road, but they do plan to not let it stop them.
Yes, for that boat partially.
I mean, I care about the owners of the boat, but damn, the oil spill, the wildlife. They want to fill Gadsden Creek, 4 acres of Gadsden Creek, for much less stuff. Are we gonna fill Shem Creek? Are we gonna build a parking lot on luxury condos and a Jimmy John's on that bitch now? Because we got an oil spill? I don't know. Let me let it play.
Partially sunk earlier this morning, spilling nearly 100 gallons of fuel. Now, the owners say they're working on restoring the boat, and obviously they're very upset. They say they just have to keep the faith. Now, Sophia, I do want to point out the crews are still actively here working to remove that boat from the water, to raise it up out of the water, to clean up some of the fuel. We can see.
Yo, this dominated news yesterday locally, and I was like, come on. I mean, it's a gasoline spill, and it warrants this attention, but I mean, I've been watching like Live 5, I think, and they just had like live coverage of it at one point, or just some live tweeting. It was really interesting.
Several boats here in the water, several people on the dock. That boat just on the other side of this one here, the red one. Yep, now, I want you to take a look at some video from earlier this morning. We were out here with those crews. The Hampton, Carolina commercial fishing boat is owned by a young couple and their family for commercial fishing. But around 9 o'clock this morning, multiple agencies responded to the boat sinking. DNR, the Coast Guard, Mount Pleasant Fire Department, and conservation agencies rushed to help in the cleanup efforts. They deployed booms for containment of that fuel, pumping it from the creek and water from the boat. The couple says they'll have to work even harder to come back from this setback.
How did it sink?
It's a livelihood.
Yes, sir.
Yes, they're getting married next October, and this was their livelihood. So
I will say that I don't want to make light of like somebody losing their livelihood, like especially right now in these economic times. Yeah.
We got between now.
Food on our table.
So we've got to get it back up and get it going again. That's just life of a commercial fisherman. Thank God, all these people down here that they've got sitting behind that you cannot see right now behind the police tape. We got about 60 people standing by, ready to help.
Okay. All right. Gonna bounce out. And so yeah, that was in the news. Let's go to the front page of the Post and Courier. I think I want to look at it like this. Hold up. Let's see if we got it. We ain't got it. Download. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's look at it this way. It's a little bit better. And then we're going to open this up too. State newspaper as well. All right, so let's look at the front page of the Post and Courier real quick. Good morning. If you're just joining us, good morning. If you're just joining us, we will be discussing after we get through the news roundup. If you're joining us this morning, we will be discussing Nikki, darling Nikki, and her Southern Charm offensive. We will be talking about her in a second. Right now, doing a local news roundup. All right, so Post and Courier honoring, of course, Pearl Harbor is dominating a lot of the anniversary, right? 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor is dominating headlines. Let's go ahead and compare it to the front page of the State. We got Murdaugh News front and center on the front page of today's State newspaper. Of course, also who's taking over after Leatherman. We've got the Richland. No. That right there is not this. But Peeler resigns as SC Senate President. Alexander steps in. Is that the Letterman thing? Do I got that mixed up? Yeah. Leatherman, yeah. Because he's going to take over for the budget stuff, yada, yada, yada. So that's the front page of the State newspaper. You've got some Richland One news here, employee news, and then you've got the Peeler resignation and the Alexander, appointment. All right, got that. Let's go back to the Post and Courier for here in the Low Country. Over here to the far right, stake to get new parks in the deal with Dominion. I got to bring somebody on to talk about the Dominion whole thing. Like I don't know, my eyes glaze over. Like it's just a lot, not in a bad, like, and I'm just admitting that I should be more engaged, but I'm not. All right. Also, USC trustees move forward with the new search. As you know, that the most recent candidate dropped out. We talked about that really quickly yesterday. They here on the front page of the Post and Courier, below the fold at the bottom, they do have the Peeler coverage here. So Peeler takes over, as finance chair, right? So taking over for the alleged legendary Leatherman. I wanted to go to the digital edition of the State newspaper because there was something right here. Boom. Sounds pretty gnarly. Charleston slave badge. Who wrote this? Caitlin Bird is on it. Charleston slave badge named among the world's top archaeological discoveries in 2021. I don't know how I feel about that. Y'all want to hear a robot read to you? Hold on a second.
Charleston slave badge named among the world's top archaeological discoveries of 2021. A small yet profound object tied to slavery and unearthed by a team of researchers and students at the College of Charleston this spring has been named one of the top discoveries of the year by Archaeology magazine.
Right, D?
Found on the site of a 19th century kitchen, the slave badge, also known as a slave tag, is a diamond-shaped medallion that acted as a work permit in Charleston city limits. It allowed enslaved people to be hired out for part-time work in the urban city center by their master to perform specific jobs, like mechanic, porter, and fisherman.
We chill with the it's a lot. Okay. So yeah, small but profound, right? So y'all, you can't talk about this without talking about modern day policing, slave patrols. We weren't just okay, and this is just the first two paragraphs, but hired out, leased out, perhaps. You know, I know some slaves received compensation for certain things, or they were allowed to sell like produce and other things on like their days off, and like there were instances where the enslaved could earn something, whether it was money exchanged for goods and services or something else, right? Bartering and whatnot. Bartering was a big thing. Big thing, especially among the fugitive slave populations. Let's keep a little bit playing.
The slave badge, which was discovered on what is now the College of Charleston campus, was issued in 1853 to an unknown servant.
Not servant.
The person who wore the small metal badge.
All right. These were not indentured servants, right? What's going on? And how, like this is that commodification, right? The way this is written, not potentially, it furthers this, like there's a sick interest that's evolved, and not just specific to things tied to artifacts tied to the enslavement of Africans brought to this continent, brought to this country, right? there are ways that we've commodified slavery in South Carolina, especially in the Low Country, that is really disgusting. We see it most notably with the plantation culture around, like, whitewashing the history of plantations to make them appealing wedding venue, make them appear as presenting them as appealing venues for weddings and other social gatherings. I don't know if this was an editorial decision. I don't know if, like, she gets to the nitty gritty. I'm sure she does get to some nitty gritty. Let's let it's going to be an ad. It's going to play in a second, but let's let it play.
Most likely around their own neck, lived in a time when their identity, and the identity of other enslaved African Americans, was stamped into a piece of copper and reduced to their occupation and badge number. Theirs was 731. The badge itself is a rare fragment of history, and its archaeological discovery is as noteworthy as fossilized footprints found in New Mexico and an ancient Egyptian city discovered beneath the sands after thousands of years, according to the editors of Archaeology
my
magazine.
Face. I just saw my own
Just
face.
a quick word from our sponsor.
Okay.
The world has waited 5 years, 11 months, and 29 days for Adele's newest...
Turn that down for a second. Yeah, I don't like the way this is written. I don't know if this is like I said, an editorial decision or not. I don't know.
.com.
The list of top 10 discoveries made in 2021 will appear in the magazine's January/February 2022 issue, which hits newsstands this week.
In the what?
We felt the tag had to be included because it's a reminder of an individual who may otherwise have been lost to time and to the dehumanizing system of enslavement, said Marley Brown, associate editor of Archaeology magazine. Brown continued, "What's more, the fact that the College of Charleston team recovered the object from its archaeological context provides a fantastic opportunity to learn more about the person who may once have worn it, a real gift considering many of these tags have no provenance." Its discovery was also a bit of a surprise. The reason there was ever an excavation site at 63.5 Cummings Street was because there were plans to build a solar pavilion there. Because the school received federal dollars from the U.S. Department of Energy through the SC Department of Energy to complete the project, it meant the site required a cultural resource survey before construction could begin. The digging began in February, and in March, while sifting through the dirt below, the slave badge surfaced. Other artifacts were found at the site, too, like pottery, animal bones, and an old ceramic soda bottle. But the slave badge was an explicit reminder of slavery, America's original sin. "You felt the evil," said Jim Newhard, a classics professor, landscape architect and director of the college's Center for Historical Landscapes. "It redoubled in my mind that not only was this artifact an expression of enslavement, so were the other objects we were recovering." Grant Gilmore, an associate professor and Addlestone Chair in Historic Preservation.
Shout out to the historians that chimed in and professors who chimed in and kind of helped contextualize what it really is. I think also the representative from Archaeological magazine, Archaeology magazine, I think they did a good job as well. Yeah, we just gotta be careful with the way we frame it. I'm not saying you have to come out here and just be over the top, heavy-handed with like outlining the viciousness and the violence that the badge holds, right? I'm not saying you have to be heavy-handed to appease someone like myself, but I think, again, there's a patina that coats a lot of coverage when it comes to issues like this or artifacts from this very dark and atrocious chapter in our history. I think there's just a way we write about it that feels a little whimsical, as opposed to, these ain't like, no, I don't even want to use that example because I remember growing up in Jersey, like people would find like arrowheads and stuff like that. But it's not like finding like a shark's tooth, like you know what I mean, on the beach or something like that, or someplace sandy or something on a boat landing. It's not like finding a shark's tooth or something else. It's deeper than that, and this is the beginning of how black bodies are policed. This is the beginning of that culture around, well, when we were brought here, our bodies were policed, but you know what I'm saying about creating a system or a structure that actually polices black bodies and restricts their movements and confines their movements and relegates them only to something that yields labor. So I think we just had to be more explicit in how we talk about those things, and I think that's my overall opinion. But I saw that story. Let me see if there was something else here that I want to talk about from video standpoint. Video news. This is interesting. This is interesting. Let's play this, and then we're gonna hop into the Nikki Haley.
When someone is hurt, They often say they want a good lawyer.
Okay, I'm gonna mute this. I'm gonna mute this and read the chat. Early in the chat, let me see. Mexico, you just dropped something. Speaking of dehumanizing, indigenous tribes in New Mexico have been saying their ancestors had been traversing those sand dunes for years. They weren't believed until archaeologists found footprints in white dunes. Right? Yeah, it's only official when a white person, like, you know what I mean, when a white man says it's official.
Get a good lawyer. Just call Joy.
I guess I could have skipped that.
Tonight at 11, Charleston Police Department approaching 2 years since the final results of a racial bias audit were published.
Right.
That audit provided insights, information, and context that the department is using with the community and aims to uncover any aspects of implicit bias or systemic and individual racial bias. Chief Luther Reynolds said his department is committed to this audit and is working to improve his department.
How?
We embrace this audit. We have from day one. And we are addressing all the findings. It's important for me to state how comprehensive that is.
That's not my computer, y'all. That's this. He's out of focus, and also you can tell by his appearance. Oh well, you might not be able to tell, but we learned through fairly recent reporting that Chick-fil-A Chief Reynolds nickname is not vicious, but he was diagnosed with cancer. That's not going to change the way I view his policies. I'm gonna be real with you. His cancer, his condition.
Department.
While I'm really hoping that he has a serious recovery. Like, I don't want Chick-fil-A Chief Reynolds to succumb to cancer at all. I want to make that abundantly clear. But I will be just as critical on his coverage, on his movement and what he says. He's still in role. He's still the chief of police, of Charleston Police. And so we will continue to discuss his actions or inactions or whatever it is, or racial bias. Just want you to know that.
Racial bias. Chief Luther Reynolds said his department is committed to this audit and is working to improve his department.
We embrace this audit. We have from day one, and we are addressing all the findings. It's important for me to state how comprehensive that is. It involves our hiring process, it involves our training, it involves our...
So they recently, not so recently, but somewhat recently, let go of Wendy Shriver, who was brought in from Ohio to help us track. You know, remember y'all, I already talked about her Domino's Pizza Tracker, these like really unimpressive graphs and whatnot that she would pull out. Well, they fired her, and like no one said boo about that. And she was charged with following through on some of the recommendations within the police audit. So I don't know. It's just lip service, and it's just like him. They, because the committee met yesterday, Public Safety Committee, I believe they streamed yesterday on YouTube and met in person, I'm sure. Yeah.
Our equipment, our policies, it involves the culture of our organization.
You think so, D? D, I heard she just was like talking shit about him. I don't know if she shook a fucking table. Do you think so? Let me know if you heard something. Keep me honest, but I just thought she was like, she didn't do shit that I saw. I heard she was just really critical of him. But
leadership development. We have made and we will continue to make progress on this audit.
There were 72 recommendations in the original audit. One was removed, but the department says they'll stick with the 72 in an effort to disclose everything and be as transparent as possible. To get a closer look at those findings, you can head to live5news.com and look for the story under the big red box.
I got you, D. Thank you for that. Thank you for that insight.
I'm attorney Marvin Bendar.
I'm attorney. Thank you for that, D. I didn't know that. Yeah, I did hear she was disruptive, right? I did hear she was disruptive, so I'll give her that. But I mean, this is the last headline from Live 5 I'm going to play right here because I want to know more about this gun in the backpack.
At John Price Law Firm, we believe that the practice of law is a profession and not simply business as usual. Let John Price Law Firm do the profession.
This is supposedly there was a school officials find a loaded gun in a backpack. You know, after the Oxford shooting, stuff like this is going to take.
A 14-year-old boy expected to.
Stuff like news like this is really going to send shockwaves throughout a community. So let's see what's going on.
face charges. Officials with the
especially given as North Charleston High School, right?
North Charleston Police Department say school officials found a loaded gun inside of a book bag at North Charleston High. They said around noon today they were called to investigate a suspicious book bag. A report states school officials looked inside of that bag to see who it belonged to, and that's when they discovered a loaded gun. Police say the school's resource officer identified the alleged offender as a 14-year-old. Officers say the boy will be charged with possession of a weapon on school grounds.
The boy needs a hug and some counseling, not a criminal record. I don't know. It's just sad. Okay. 14 years old. Yeah. Got too many guns in this country. Got too many guns in this country. All right, I'm going to close out Live 5 News. All right, let me see what this is. Yeah, this is from Archaeology Magazine. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad they're talking about slave tags, though, and how people are finding those things or whatever. I just imagine, like, black people just ripping them shits off and just discarding them, just throwing them shits, just like, you know, I don't know. They finding all these tags. I have a fantasy in my head where, like, the enslaved are just, like, will rip these shits off and just, you know, try to flee to safety or flee to a different area. I don't know. I don't want to romanticize that, but that's what I feel. Let's see right here if there's anything. So let's revisit some things. So now we're going to get back. Now we're going to get into the whole Nikki Haley thing. I'm not going to do too much on the redistricting and stuff like that. I thought I was, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah, so let's talk about Nikki Haley. So last week we talked about a little bit, we played a clip from her getting that distinguished award, allegedly, let me use air quotes, distinguished award from the Citadel, right? Hold on one second. Okay, Denise, you said did they ever mention whatever happened to Rivers Oak Middle? I don't know. And you said that Wendy said some stuff. Wendy Shriver said some stuff in private private circles. Like she said it was the worst year. No, not a track on my album. Not at all. But it's if it's a track on my album, Southern Charm Offensive is be on my diss track. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Wendy said some stuff in private. That you know, I would love to hear her say it publicly. But let's switch gears awkwardly. Let's careen the car to another direction. We're gonna talk about Nikki Haley. So we're gonna talk about, before we get to the Trump visit, we're gonna talk about like recent news. Recap some recent news here in the Low Country, right?
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley honored for her leadership.
We already watched this, but we just want to watch a little bit again, right?
Leadership while making a rare public appearance.
News 2's Lexi Moore was there, joins us in the studio. Lexi,
what up, Joy?
Nikki Haley spoke tonight at the Citadel about the future of South Carolina and this country.
Burning Carolyn, the former governor.
So I get that this is the former governor, and I get that the Citadel is a storied and illustrious institution built on policing. But speaking of slave badges and tracking black people's movements, the Citadel was built to put down any perspective or any types of slave insurrections or rebellion. The Citadel was created to punish and torture black people. There were workhouses that were part of the Citadel's original footprint throughout the city of Charleston on the peninsula. So I get that. You know, whatever. I just wanted to say that about the Citadel, so we make that abundantly fucking clear. But I get this is the former governor. I get that the former governor came to Charleston to get this award. She's the first woman to receive this reward. But it's really interesting what Channel 2 is doing to kind of like cue up this story, like the American flag behind it. That was a very interesting editorial decision.
Spoke of her accomplishments both as governor and as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She says she's proud to accept this award, not because of what she's done, but because she's represented South Carolina along the way.
I can say it's good to be back, and I have to say.
So I'm just playing that so you know. Okay, so she's been making a play, and like all awards, y'all. Let me just y'all know that many awards are political. Are a lot of the and sorry for anybody, all my friends who've gotten recent awards. I love y'all. Y'all deserve it. Y'all are badasses. But y'all know like some of them like 30 under 30 or 40 under 40 or da-da-da. You know that those things oftentimes are like things you campaign for. you perhaps the I believe like the higher the honor or the more significant the honor, the more lobbying you might have to do behind the scenes. So I'm just going to speculate very recklessly and say that she probably made an appeal to the Citadel. Her camp made an appeal probably to the Citadel for this award. And I think that as we've seen her dominate, I don't want to say dominate, but we've seen Nikki Haley make more and more headlines recently. You get it. And trust me, this bitch right here, I love a slick rollout. I love when an artist releases a video, then you got a special, like when Adele sat down with Oprah, right? And then she did her a makeup tutorial with Nikki tutorials on YouTube. If you YouTube makeup fan, you know that's a big fucking deal. Then you see Adele, you see it like it's all part of the rollout. It's not just Adele is just, oh, I like Adele, she's on these no. It's part of the PR rollout. And this is what you're seeing with Nikki Haley. You're seeing her make more and more appearances. You're seeing her get more and more time on shows, on talk shows. And that's part of she's trying to get this machinery, this clunky machinery that where with bolts and cogs just come just flying out. The more she moves, she's trying to get this machinery off the ground again. It's interesting to watch. But I wanted to point that out, and then as I go to it, so we know she got this award at Citadel. I think that was campaigned and lobbied for. Let's break down who Nikki Haley is. Let's go to that podcast that Paul Bowers was featured on. Let's go ahead and play this because I think Paul does a great job breaking down who Nikki Haley is to a lot of people. So let me see this. I think I could let it play from the beginning. I think they get right into it. They're not like me. They don't talk for 10-15 minutes on some rah. Let's see.
Third chapter of her political career right now. Could you sort of tell people what Nikki Haley has been doing after she left the high offices of the United Nations?
Shout out to Left Reckoning.
Yeah, it's been a source of fascination for me. She, as you said, I guess this is her third sort of round trying to build a public career. But yeah, I mean, she started out, working for her parents' company. She grew up in Bamberg, which is very rural, became a state lawmaker, and then very quickly rose to become governor and beat a really competitive primary field, including current Governor Henry McMaster, and became the first. I mean, the headlines she made nationally were that she was the first woman and the first non-white governor in state history. And so, yeah, she sort of instantly got a national profile. Served as governor, had did about as much damage as any other Republican would in that office, in terms of defunding of public infrastructure and schools.
This is important.
In terms of union busting, I mean, she explicitly fought unions and recorded radio ads discouraging people from joining unions at Boeing when they came here. So anyway, was rewarded with a seat at the United Nations by Donald Trump. So was our UN ambassador for a few years there. I think that was, I want to say 2017 to 19. I'll be getting the years wrong, but stepped down as the Trump years wound down, and then sort of went quiet. And she's always been very ambitious. Yes. I mean, every 4 years, someone brings her up as either a presidential candidate or running mate.
Right, we're seeing it now.
And she's never really made any serious moves toward that. So there's speculation as soon as she left the UN, what's she gonna do? Is she gonna?
Like KCJ18, I already would listen to this whole interview, and listen to the second time. I paid attention to the same thing. It's a lot. Nikki don't leave a nice taste on the tip of my tongue. It's a lot. And then you could tell I'm going to speculate even more with Paul. You can tell, it's so much bad shit that Nikki Haley has been responsible for. And, Paul is really good at maintaining a level of, credibility, journalistic credibility, which I'm really proud of. I'm really, happy that he does that so I can do what I do. We need Paul Bowers, to keep it straight, right? That's my point. What I'm trying to say is, Paul Bowers is going to give it to you, but he's going to make sure that you hear the message and not like, you know, he's going to make sure that he's a journalist. He shows up as a journalist. So he's parsing his words a little bit from what I can gather, but he's doing a good job. But he does sound like he's in immense pain. Like, that's all right, Paul. I got the invective. You go ahead and keep it credible.
You know, run for president. Is she going to move back to South Carolina? She actually bought
for those who don't know, this is Paul Bowers. This is Paul Bowers, if you don't know his face.
Mansion.
Or his banjos.
In South Carolina on, I want to say it's Seabrook Island, one of the sea islands that has become just sort of
a gonna cut it off. Hold up.
Private island for millionaires. And so everybody was like, well, what's she going to run for? And so far, nothing. She has a super PAC that has a ton of money, but hasn't announced for any particular office.
Thank you, El Cool J.
And instead, she has started this thing, it's a 501c4 organization called Stand for America. And I don't know how social media ads target geographically, you know, if y'all ever see them, but I saw a lot for Stand for America shortly after she left the UN. Didn't really make much of it.
Paul is a stiff jab and I'm a uppercut. Not to say either one is more lethal, but if I'm gonna be 1-2 punch, jab, 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 boom. Good night. I want to be boom. All right. Can you tell I did a lot of body pump at Gold's Gym on James Island? Uppercut, body pump was my jam. All right. So anyway, so that's a little more. I think Paul does a really good job. Let me give some. Paul, if you're listening, you're invited to join Mic'd Up, by the way. Shout out to all the journalists that ain't scared to come on Mic'd Up, and shout out to all the ones that is scared to come on Mic'd Up. Let me see, man, just get your ass on this damn live stream. I'm trying to get you clicks. I'm trying to get your content. You know what I mean? Anyway, shout out, Paul. You're invited to the live stream, but we're gonna stop it there. Paul did a great job as per usual. I will suggest that y'all go back. This is Left Reckoning. It looks like they have a podcast. Everyone's got a serious setup, a serious mic. So I'm sure this is a podcast, but also a video podcast. They have 17,000 followers here on YouTube. And this episode got 361 views. So go ahead and run that up for the boy. I think that they did a good job talking and explaining who Nikki Haley is, right? Then I wanted to get to this recent thing that Nikki Haley said that was so asinine, right? And I'm gonna get to some other reporting too, but I want to get to this because this is again showing you how she's trying to make a play, or at least gives you some indication of what she's trying to do, what she's trying to go for. All right.
Went to the Supreme Court.
All right, got your boy, the alleged progressive on MSNBC. Let's go.
From what I hear, if you look at Mr. Pillsbury, the leading authority on China, he was on a
show.
I won't mention the name.
So this is on November 5th, all right? So this is over a month ago.
Show recently, and he was saying that China has total respect for Donald Trump.
The wrecking ball, the scalpel.
Very, very large brain.
Regardless of what Mr. Pillsbury's or even China's opinion of Donald Trump's brain may be, the 45th president's time in office raised massive questions about whether or not his brain was up to the task. And so it makes it hard to believe that his former UN ambassador was actually talking about Donald Trump's successor when she said this.
If you're going to have...
I don't like what they just did there. Hold on, let me see.
Authority on China. He was on a good show. I won't mention the name of the show recently. And he was saying that China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain.
Regardless of what Mr. Pillsbury's or even China's opinion of Donald Trump's brain may be, the 45th president's time in office raised massive questions about whether or not his brain was up to the task. And so it makes it hard to believe that his former UN ambassador was actually talking about...
Joni, Joni, you win. You win the comment. I don't care whatever anyone else comments the rest of the day. You win. Yeah, it feels like it. But I will say, it feels like old boy right here, the host sitting in for Chris Hayes. Feel like, what's his name? How you say it? Is it Mehdi? Last name? Feel like so Nikki Haley's about to say something very, very, very ableist and ageist, I think, too. We don't need to, and they do this with Trump a lot, we don't need to be ageist, or we don't need to be ableist either. Like, we know, look, do I think that there's something off with Trump mentally? I mean, white supremacy is like a mental illness. I to that extent, right? I will never, ever sit here and say I think he's mentally ill. I just think he's an abhorrent human being who's not that bright. So I think that the left gets wrapped up in trying to find, oh, he has dementia. Oh, nah, he's just a alleged billionaire, man that's failed his way up all the way up to the presidency of the United States, and he has no scruples, he has no moral center, and I just think he's a buffoon. So I don't think you have to be, you don't have to engage in the same ableist tactics to make a point about Nikki Haley's asinine ass. Make a point about Nikki Haley's asinine ass comments about cognitive tests for older politicians. I think that's really gross.
Donald Trump's successor, when she said this:
if you're going to have anyone above a certain age,
he's just a dummy
in a position of power, whether it's that.
We gotta stop giving these give mediocre white men extraordinary, they not X-Men and shit like that. He's just a dummy.
House, whether it's the Senate, whether it's vice president, whether it's president, you should have some sort of cognitive test. Just like you have to show your tax returns, you should have some sort of health screening so that people have faith in what you're doing.
She has no self-awareness.
I don't even know where to begin with that.
None.
Number one, Nikki Haley's former boss, Donald Trump, of course, never actually shared his tax returns with the public. In fact, he went to the Supreme Court not once but twice to prevent New York state authorities from getting his financial records. And number two, does she really think anyone, even Donald's closest aides, had any faith in his cognitive abilities while he was in office? I mean, did Trump himself?
The radical left was saying, is he all there? Is he all there? And I proved I was all there because I aced it. I aced the test. I took it at Walter Reed Medical Center.
He's such a liar.
In front of doctors, and they were very surprised. They said, that's an unbelievable thing. Rarely does anybody do what you just did.
The last questions are much more difficult, like a memory question. It's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman,
I don't
man, camera,
we gotta
TV.
be careful. The left gotta be
okay. That's
I wanna focus on Nikki Haley's. And we're gonna stop it there. I wanted to focus on Nikki Haley's her response that she just gave, and not necessarily this whole package because it's problematic as fuck. Trump is a buffoon. He might be on mind-altering substances. I don't think that this dude is above I don't want to speculate that too much because I don't want to engage in the same bullshit. But he might be under the influence. He might just be but he's above all things. He's an idiot. He's always been idiotic. We saw it during the 2016 presidential debates, right? We saw what he did. That's his thing. He distracts you with the antics and the dumb shit. And a lot of people identify with them because they feel like that makes him more relatable, that he's not as poised and as polished. So some of it might be for effect. Some of it might be a concerted effort. And but the fact that Nikki Haley is she's trying to do what Mace is doing a little bit too, grabbing any old headlines to just stay relevant, right? And then there was this story here. Oh no, this is an old story. I want to get to Nikki and potentially, because honestly, what I asserted earlier is what I'll maintain. Oh no, let me see. Vice President. I maintain she's just trying to remain politically relevant, yes, and also a viable option as a running mate to Donald Trump. trying not to go to Politico as much lately because they kind of been like trash. They've been super buns. All right, Nikki Haley's time for choosing, right? Look at this bullshit. The Politico got to stop. The 2024 hopeful can't decide who she wants to be. That's true. The leader of the post-Trump GOP or a friend to the president who tried to sabotage democracy. She really don't know. I guess, yeah, she really don't know. Let's enhance it right here. So late last year, Nikki Haley had a friend who was going through a hard time. He had lost his job and been evicted from his house. Talking about Trump. He was getting bad advice from bad people who were filling his head with self-destructive fantasies. He seemed to be losing touch with reality. Out of concern, Haley called the man. I want to make sure you're okay, she told him. You're my president, but you're also my friend. What the fuck? She said this shit? For real? At the time of Haley's call, Donald Trump, her friend, had spent much of the previous month refusing to concede defeat in an election he clearly lost, opting instead to delegitimize the institutions of government that upheld the result, indulge in outlandish conspiracy theories, and generally subvert the country's 244-year-old democratic norms. Republican leaders who possess the credibility to dispute these claims publicly and exert a counter-influence over the GOP electorate had chosen not to. Haley was among those who kept quiet. All right, for the previous 4 years since being plucked from the governorship of South Carolina to serve as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Haley had navigated the Trump era with a singular shrewdness, messaging and maneuvering. Right, and then this is real, right? That shrewdness, that messaging, the maneuvering in ways that kept her in solid standing with the GOP donor class, as well as with the president and his base. She maintained a direct line to Trump, keeping private her candid criticisms of him while publicly striking an air of detached deference, cognitive dissonance. Upon her resignation in 2018, the New York Times editorial page praised Haley as the rarest of Trump appointees, right, who could exit the administration with her dignity intact. The fuck she did? What the fuck? New York Times be just depressing me. Let's just get to the vice president piece real quick, right? Let's see. Let me see. Where'd it go? Let's see if they mention it here. To the skeptic, it might appear that Haley had done what was politically expedient, throwing Trump under the bus. Talk about when she did come out and disparage Trump, right? So it says, to the skeptic, throwing Trump under the bus to curry favor with the party's elites. She did, what does it say right here? She did it her own way in South Carolina, and it worked because it was authentic, right? Whatever. That's what Kellyanne Conway say. Okay. I wanted to get to her vice presidential ambitions. All right, it's not there. But what I wanted to do is state newspaper. Nikki Haley. I think Caitlin Bird wrote something when she came to Charleston. All right, Nikki Haley unable to escape 2024 intrigue. And then we're going to also go here and we're going to look up spell Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. No, this happened recently. Let's go. Come on. This week. Stop playing. Yeah. I don't know about this news outlet. I don't know. I don't want to click on anything garbage. I don't want to. Let's see. This probably is. I don't know what this is. This news outlet. So this was the recent news, right? Okay, it says that she recently met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Nikki Haley and Trump sat down for a positive and constructive meeting, according to people familiar with the meeting. This is the Golden State Times. Is that like a San Francisco newspaper? I hate these types of videos. All right, Nikki Haley after the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Let me turn this down. I don't need all that dumb Superman music. Nikki Haley, after the January 6th riot at the Capitol, excoriated Trump, suggesting that he would no longer be a political force. Okay, I don't know if this is, okay, it's apolitical, not apolitical. A political force going into the 2022 or 2024 elections, right? Let's keep going. No music. No music. No music. She said at the time, we need to acknowledge he let us down, right? That's what she said at the time. She went on to say he went down a path he shouldn't have, and we shouldn't have followed him. That's what she said on Wax, right? And we shouldn't have listened to him. She said all of that. And we can't let that ever. Okay, we can't let that ever. Okay. Okay. Maybe I do need the music to know when it's gonna move. Okay. All right. That's what she said. Okay. Come on, Golden State Time. I don't know what this is. Haley also said she would not run for president if Trump decided to run. So again, leading to me to speculate that she's going to run for office. In the chat over here, LQJ, you said exactly. GOP and the way elections run are tallied and are tallied in Congress change for a long spell because the people have not given the green light to be all out. Joy, you said, I wonder if she's prepared for the real change in our current political climate. I don't know, Joy. And you said, in your opinion, things are very different. They are very, very different. Very different. Post-Trump GOP, right? That, yeah, Trump isn't done. He is not done. Anna, you dropped that in the chat earlier. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. All right, let's go back to this more recent reporting. This is from December 2nd, right? Nikki Haley unable to escape 2024 intrigue. Let me make this a little larger. Okay. All right. South Carolina Republican presidential primary flickered to life Thursday night when former Governor Nikki Haley took to the stage in Charleston, where she addressed a room full of GOP voters who at times struggled to hide their own hopes about her political future. All right. One man jumped to his feet at the end of Haley's, probably a ringer she put in the crowd. One man jumped to his feet at the end of Haley's 25-minute speech. That's our next president of the United States of America. Please. The Reverend Robert Julius Reed exclaimed. Who is that? Pointing to the stage where Haley just stood. Get that man his money. Attendees at the Citadel Republican Society's annual Patriot Dinner, a well-known stop for politicians seeking higher office, agreed. They responded to Reed's proclamation with thunderous applause. All that is so important. That backdrop is important. I really do believe that she paid for that. I really do believe this was campaign for, like, not paid for like a bag of money, but like I really do feel like there was an exchange for goods and services for this backdrop. Like the Patriot Dinner award. She's the first woman. She's non-black, POC. I think all of this was a concerted effort. It's like, yeah. During her remarks, Haley rattled off a list of accomplishments, both as governor of South Carolina and as United Nations ambassador for 2 years under former President Donald Trump, right? They talk about her comments when she excoriated Trump. Haley mentioned Trump twice in her speech, a move that suggests that she may be trying to chart a political path that is connected to, but not dependent on, like Youngkin, her ties to the former president. When she did mention Trump by name, Haley credited both him and the GOP for building what she called one of the hottest economies in American history during the Trump years. Okay, hot for who? I don't know what you're talking about, right? Show me the Carfax. The only other nod came when Haley reaffirmed one of Trump's famous campaign promises when she said, it's time to build the wall. Get the fuck out of here. She said that shit? Oh my God. So like, just like, it's like Trump bingo, you just say all the greatest hits? All right, Trump, it says Haley's speech oscillated between sharp one-liners and hopeful depictions of a brighter future with Republicans back in control. You know what? Let me go back to Paul's video, Paul's appearance on Left Reckoning. Let me go back to that because he starts hitting on certain things.
John Birch style.
It's it's weird what she does.
Letter from Nikki Haley. I was a kick out of it. And they brought over this envelope because it had a letter from Nikki Haley. It was stamped with Stand for America. And it had a banknote from Venezuela. It was a what's the currency?
The Bolivar.
A Bolivar, yeah. There's like 100 Bolivars, and there's like this long, sort of like John Birch style letter with it about the evils of socialism and how like
right. So the conversation is about her war on socialism, but there was something else.
I mean, it's a political apparatus that says the same things as the Heritage Foundation or kind of like the neocon think tank world. I mean, it's like PragerU, but boring. Like, I don't know what it does exactly, but it's got a bunch of money. It spends like, so far they spent $1.5 million on Facebook ads.
That's
to what end? I still don't know. Yeah.
No, I mean,
so that's what she's up to now.
Well, we have this clip here I'm going to play in 1 second because it is actually interesting to see where she's positioning herself. But before we get to it, I mean, I don't know either, right? And you would know more than me. I mean, there's a part of me when it comes to Nikki Haley, having seen her, my first election was
this is important.
The first time I voted was against Nikki Haley. So,
yeah,
I've been following her for a while.
For Vince Shaheen.
Yeah, I voted for Vince Shaheen, who's like the most milquetoast Democrat ever. But it was my first time voting. I was very excited. Actually, the funniest thing is I had a bumper sticker on my car, and I remember like my wheel popping or something like that later, and the mechanic like giving me a really hard time like 6 months after the election about it. But anyways, I mean, Nikki Haley is fascinating because I'm going to be honest. I actually think that when it comes to having a kind of general political skill, I actually do think that she has an ability to. She can speak. She's clever. She's. She's horrendous. Don't get me wrong, but we're just judging talent. Like the Republicans could do a lot worse than Nikki Haley, right? I don't know how well she's playing, but like they put up Jeb Bush, right?
She's not visibly a mutant like Mitch McConnell or all these other people.
She does do these two things. Like I guess what I'm saying is with Nikki Haley is I've never been able to understand is if she's a true believer,
right,
or if she's just completely cynical, right?
Right.
And throughout her life and throughout her political career, I've leaned either way. So I'm just going to say judgment is out because there's a part of me that thinks like this is a great gig for her to just sort of like do politics without ever having to do politics again, right? She just gets to send people like.
Yeah, you know what? Like if you're a sports fan, right? If you're a sports fan, and you watch football, I watch football. I watch NFL, and I know the NFL is straight trash. I know, but I watch sports. I don't apologize for it. But one thing about like when a charismatic veteran player retires, one that's really got the gift of gab, there's always this conversation about like, will they go in the booth? Like, and they mean like, will they be like call games for like CBS Sports on Sunday or like with the A-Team on Fox or most notably Monday Night Football, that's a coveted spot. And that's what I feel like Nikki Haley, I thought that's what she was trying to do, was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to get back into coaching. I don't know if I want to get back into the game, but maybe if I just, call the game from a booth, I don't have to deal with all the rigors of what I could still be next to the sport, but in a way that's better for me financially, in a way that's better for me to just remain relevant and stay on people's, screens and constantly have the ear of people. I thought that's what she was doing too, to his point, like trying to figure out how to be a politician without being a politician, like how to be a politician and come off as a viable option without even actually governing or being held to a certain standard, right? And this part of that Southern charm offensive that I think she is employing. But it was interesting that he said it like that because I wasn't quite sure either. Again, this was recorded, or at least this was published on November 12th. So it's before the Mar-a-Lago visit, right? Yeah, she's not a true believer, just like Nancy Mace. A lot of the politicians too. I'm calling out those on the right, but the left too, like they're not really believers. A lot of folks aren't. When you're in this game, you really do. It's about marketing. It's about PR. It's about mass appeal. So there are some more heartfelt folks who just happen to be politicians who really do give a fuck, who care about this country, who care about their communities. But for the most part, seriously, politicians tend to play a role. Even if they start out with like really earnest intentions, like the way the game is set up, you're going to have to discard. You've seen that with the squad. You're going to have to discard some of those convictions to do what's politically expedient. You see it with the squad all the time with the squad.
Freak out mailers about socialism and live on a nice mansion.
That's what Jim DeMint did. That was
which is
he left Congress and worked for the Heritage. Yeah, like early retirement. Yeah,
but anyways, but when she does speak, when she does make her interventions, I mean, she does play a role within that party, or at least for a very specific kind of economic conservative, right? Like very free market, pro-capitalist. We were talking earlier about how she was a union buster. I mean, when people talk about conservatives in the sense of like, what is the GOP, like from a Marxist perspective, drop the cultural stuff, what does the GOP really do? It's like the hammer to break labor's power, particularly.
On the squad, like, so there's Michelle, to your question, you said, can I expand on the squad? So basically, of course, the squad is the progressive sect of the Democratic, in Congress, we see the squad, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, those who are proclaimed progressive. But the criticism the squad has gotten over the last couple of years is that they have not leveraged a lot of the power that they have, that they've kind of gone along and voted along lines with the Democratic establishment in times where they could have demonstrated some courage and actually maybe done a lot of, I hate to say it, but done a lot of what you saw Sinema and Manchin do, which is like, I'm gonna take my toys and go home. Now, where the squad would be more, I would imagine they'd have a more principled stance if they did obstruct or if they did decide to not vote in favor of legislation that didn't have all of the tenets that they allegedly stand for. That would be a more principled stand than what we see Sinema doing. Sinema is doing what Big Pharma wants her to do. Sinema is also not disclosing why she's objecting to certain things, which leads us to think and to believe that she's just doing the bidding of those who donate to her campaign, right? Sinema has aligned herself with Tim Scott and Mitch Romney and others, right? So that's a less principled stance on hey, I don't want to vote for this. People want to call Sinema a maverick when she's just really an obstructionist white woman who's basic as fuck. But with the squad, what they could have done many times is done a lot of that. You know what? You're not going to get my vote. If you need X amount of votes to pass this legislation, well, we're not going to give it to you. They haven't done that. And I understand this. Let me just make this really abundantly clear. I understand when you get into Congress, you get an education real quick of who's in charge. Right? A lot of this stuff is not just lack of political will or gumption or fortitude. A lot of it is the way, to Dee's point earlier, the way they beat that shit out of you. There are so many things, barriers, roadblocks in place to derail any dissenting faction within any party, right? While we see the Boberts and the Looney Tunes squad, go over the Monstars over there on the GOP side, kind of looks like they're winning, but they, believe me, they've fallen in line behind the scenes. They don't care about committees and stuff like that. Shit, Manchin don't care about, some of the people don't care about committees, but a lot of that is power, right? A lot of them don't want to be removed from committees. A lot of them want to be included, want to be on legislation as co-authors. And so a lot of that is revoked. And that's just the little low-lying things. There's a lot of ways that Nancy Pelosi and the establishment Dems will get you in line. And so there are things happening behind the scenes, conversations happening where everyone fall in line. Like you saw it. And we talked about this very lightly here. We saw after Joe Biden won South Carolina, Obama and them got on that phone. All the establishment apparatus got on that fucking phone and says, fall the fucking line. And what did everybody do? Everybody fell the fucking line. And yup, okay, I'm dropping out. I'm supporting Biden. Pete Buttigieg, I'm out. Biden's the boy, right? All of them fell in line after that call came through. And I'm being a little bit the figurative language. I'm not being literal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm not being exactly literal, but basically people got the message, and you see that happening with the squad, that they've been neutered in some way, shape, or form, and refuse to use the power that they have when they could. And I know Brianna Joy Gray, she talks about that at length on like Bad Faith podcast. She's dedicated entire episodes to that. And so it's going to challenge you. Bad Faith always challenges me. It'll challenge you as well. But I think it's worth a listen about how the squad is just really not living up to its billing at all. But why can't they do this with I don't know. Well, you know why? Because the interest behind Kia, to your question, the interest behind Cinema and Mansion are the interest that they benefit from. Clyburn can't rap Cinema's knuckles about being beholden to Big Pharma when he's beholden to Big Pharma, and Cory Booker's beholden to Big Pharma. Like, a lot of and I'm just using Big Pharma as one source, but there's other, fossil fuels with Mansion. You can go on and on. But yeah, they ain't gonna go after them. I'm like, what that look like, Clyburn? But did y'all see Clyburn and Warren got together on some legislation? That was interesting. Where's Justin? I wish Justin was here.
Clear this out. And Nikki Haley plays that role well. We have this clip of her.
It can change. You gotta break it. And I don't want to be too irresponsible on this live stream, but because I don't want to say something crazy that's not really founded in any type of study, but we are going to have to break it. There's no voting our way through this. There's no voting our way through this. There's no voter turnout. There's no nothing, right? It's not going to be enough. All right, let's keep going.
I think it might be speaking at the Heritage Foundation, but I could be incorrect about that. But it's just very interesting because a lot of people, especially in
I could do one. Oh, look at that special request. You want me to do a squad episode? Yes, I will. Let me find my selfie with Ayanna Presley.
World are getting very alarmed about like the Josh Hawleys, or maybe less so in possibilities of him winning, but what he represents, like the JD Vances, right?
Important.
This kind of new, what they're calling, like the populists, like Republican. Right populists. Thank you, Matt. And this talk from her is very much hitting at that. And I think it's interesting to see, if she does have a political role, this is what she's sort of representing.
It pains me to see some of our friends turning their backs on our principles. They're similar to it
is like to Paul's point, it's like the Heritage Foundation. It's really, she's just hitting on certain emotional touch points to get a response from people. She's saying all these buzzwords that evoke a certain response. But it's really empty jargon shit. But it's empty and specific at the same time. Does that make any sense? Because it signals something to a certain faction. So it's empty rhetoric that doesn't really mean anything. It's not really grounded in reality, especially her views on communism, right? A lot of that still is just crazy. Just so amazingly nutty. Not to be ableist, but yeah. Anyway, let me just play it.
Frightened Tories Margaret Thatcher faced in 1980.
Margaret Thatcher?
You know what I'm talking about.
Pull that one out.
The conservatives who claim capitalism no longer works.
Who does that?
They conclude that economic freedom fails families and hurts workers. So they're trying to create a hybrid capitalism, a hyphenated capitalism. It's all a sham. Tear off the window dressing, and they're calling for more mandates, more rules, and more government control of the economy and our daily life. They want to create more welfare programs and accelerate government spending. It's unthinkable, but they're fine with less personal freedom and more government power. That's not capitalism. It's socialism light.
No, it's not. What are you talking
There was a
about?
time when conservatives understood that. In fact, there used to be a name for it. The quote, dime store New Deal. It's nothing more than bigger government, just not as big as the socialists want.
She sounds nutty.
Well, good luck with that. Conservatives will never outbid the left when it comes to growing government.
Jeez.
I just Googled the Fighting Tories and nothing comes up. I have no idea. Like, you know what we're talking about. Like, no. The only thing that comes
the Fighting Tories that we all know and love.
Yeah.
I know Paul knows all that all those old timey references, political references. I completely go over my head, but she's talking a certain talk. I wanted to get back to some recent reporting. So we right here, this is again Caitlin Bird's piece. Haley's speech oscillated between sharp one-liners when she's at the Citadel and depictions of a brighter future with Republicans back in control of Congress and the White House, right? It goes on to say Joe Biden is the greatest gift. What? Joe Biden is the greatest gift to America's enemies since Jimmy Carter. You really gotta like be scraping the bottom of the rhetoric barrel to demonize Jimmy Carter. Like I know Jimmy Carter's track record. I know how he, whatever. I know one term, all of that. But you got to be scraping the bottom of the rhetoric barrel to attack Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter got more, and I ain't one for caping for no candidates. But the least horrible president we had in my lifetime is Jimmy Carter. And like Jimmy Carter, like you can tell that dude is like a solid dude, right? Policies aside, like dude got more class in his pinky nail than Nikki Haley has in her entire body. Like you got to be like that's the name. And to the left reckoning's point of like her just pulling out these really mothball laden examples or these like old ass references like Jimmy Carter. You're at the Citadel. Them young bucks don't even know who the fuck Jimmy Carter is. Let me keep it real. How you gonna put Jimmy Carter in the same boat as fucking Joe Biden? Somebody keep me honest on that one. I don't see the comparison other than white and male. I don't. All right, she says Joe Biden is the greatest gift to America's enemies since Jimmy Carter. Okay, drawing an elongated burn. They're so corny. I maintain the right will never know how, the right has a really morbid sense of humor. I maintain that. Joni, you just dropped in the chat, amen, about Jimmy Carter, right? I'm out in my age, but his signature is on my birth certificate. It's all good. I'm right there with you, but not with, 1980s, baby. You got it. right? LQJ, you said over here, right, Carter was the most human president we ever had. Seriously? Like, seriously? And that got a oh shit from the audience. Get the fuck out of here. All right, what I liked about the left reckoning too, like as they go on, they talk about certain things that Nikki Haley was like charged with, like she got the Confederate flag down, like and Paul did interrupt. Paul did like interject, like help walk that back. But I wanted to revisit some of her best hits, and this is from 2019, so this is not even that old, right? This is written by Amy Ortiz with the New York Times. Nikki Haley's Confederate flag comment sparked backlash. So this is like a more recent, 2019. She told the conservative radio host Glenn Beck, the Confederate, remember that? It's two N's. Beck flag. Right? I don't even want to play this shit. Let me see. Yeah, this is let's do this. WLTX did something on this. Okay.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Lauren Thomas. We begin with former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. She's come under fire for some comments she made in a recent interview. The interview happened on Glenn Beck's internet podcast, and a clip was shown on Twitter where the former governor was commenting on the removal of the... No, Michelle,
Clinton appointed RBG. Couple presidents later, Clinton appointed a few presidents, a few terms, couple presidents later, Clinton appointed RBG.
The Confederate flag from the State House grounds and the events that led up to that removal. That includes racial tensions that were building as a result of the Walter Scott shooting in April of 2015 and the massacre at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston 2 months later. In the clip, she speaks about the victims of the shooting as well as the shooter, Dylan Roof, saying that he hijacked the Confederate battle flag, saying, quote, "We don't have hateful people in South Carolina. There's always this small minority that's always..."
So this is that pick me bullshit. This that pick me shit. The GOP's version of like a pick me. That's not necessarily about sex appeal, even though that factors in. She has to maintain a certain level of attractiveness. That I will maintain that, right? That's why Sarah Palin was so attractive to them. That's why Bo Bird is so attracted to them. All right, so but this is it right here. Like, as a brown woman, as someone who's definitely vying for model minority status, right? Because we're not gonna erase her Asian identity, right? That's why we call her Nimrata. We're not doing that to be mean or cruel. That's her name. We're not gonna erase her Asian identity as so many others do. But so to have an Asian woman come out and talk about race in this way, and Tim Scott does the same thing. To have someone who is not white come out and say these things is very comforting, and it's that type of messaging they want from their brown representation.
Going to be there, but people saw,
even after Dylan Roof literally came into the church and murdered 9 black churchgoers innocently, even though you Slager shot a black man who was unarmed, shot him in the back 8 times, we still gonna act like race is not a motherfucking factor. Shame on her.
This as service and sacrifice and heritage, but once he did that, there's no way to overcome it. She goes on to say that the national media came in droves. They wanted to define what happened. She says they wanted to make this about racism. They wanted to make it about gun control.
I knew you was
going
to
to make it about the death penalty. She says, I really pushed off the national media and said there will be a time and place when we talk about this, but it's not now. Now, there were responses online to her comments, including a response from Senator Marlin Kempson, who represents Charleston. He tweeted this, saying, as the senator who represents Mother Emanuel and one of the floor leaders to...
One thing Marlin gonna do, he gonna say something Mother Emanuel. Now he gonna evoke that name. Just making it clear, he definitely, Mother Emanuel's a go-to. Making it clear, not attacking. Perfect.
Remove the flag. I find these comments ignorant of history and the facts.
Very.
The General Assembly removed the flag with 2/3 vote in a multi-week debate. Haley was a sideline Monday morning cheerleader at best.
Ooh,
Representative J.
Oh, where you at, Citadel Republic? Ooh, I'll give you that, Marlon. Marlon off the ropes.
Now listen.
That's called motherfucking bars, Marlon. Come on. Haley was a sideline Monday morning cheerleader.
At best. Representative J.A. Moore responded to Senator Kempson's tweet saying, Senator Kempson, as you know, my sister was tragically murdered in the Mother Emanuel AME Church tragedy. Your leadership and friendship was extremely important to myself and my family. He goes on to say, let's be clear, Nikki Haley, continued use of this tragedy for political reasons is disgusting. Now, Nikki Haley responded to that backlash on Twitter saying 2015 was a painful time for our state. The pain was and is still real. She included a 2015 New York Times article about her decision to remove the Confederate flag, saying, I stand by it. I continue to be proud of the people of South Carolina and how we turn the hate of a killer into love for each other. Now,
that's some bullshit. Who wrote that? They need to get that was corny. I know when they wrote that, her speechwriter or whomever helms her communication, I know they thought that they nailed it with that last one. Y'all hear that bullshit? Please, I want y'all, if y'all don't learn anything from watching me, please learn how to suss out bullshit. Please.
Carolina and how we turn the hate of a killer into love for each other.
You can't turn hate into fucking love. Who wrote that? That's the most emptiest, most violent shit. Hey, I know they came and hunted you down. Hey, black people, I know that historically white men and militias have come and hunted you down in the state of South Carolina. Historically, that's happened a lot. But just turn that into love for each other. Hey, I know black people, you've been hunted down in one way, shape, or form in this state historically, just because you exist and you're not here producing free labor anymore, the people want to kill you and put you in your so-called place. But turn that into hate. Turn that hate into love. The fuck? right? Get out of here. I wanted to revisit that because, again, just showing you who she is. But what you saw in that tweet, that whomever authored it, that she, of course, she agreed with the messaging. That's that Southern Charm offensive. That's that double speak. That the flag is bad in his hands, but good in my hands, and we all gonna hug each other, and like that's the charm. That's the Southern Charm offensive. That is really part of her, I guess, the appeal. She's able to really ignore and to undermine important, facts. And no one really challenges on her, right? This is what I wanted to play right here. This is old. This is 3 years ago, but I think this is good. I don't like the way it ended. I think it was a little too soft, but it gives you a little insight, right? So I'm just going to play this because it gives you some background.
So at the end of the year, Nikki will be...
Again, this is 3 years old from 2018, right? But this is tell you, like, this is her ascension from the governorship to some bullshit.
So at the end of the year, Nikki will be...
I got you, Megzy.
...leaving, and will be in constant touch. I know that. Whenever you have any ideas, you're going to call me because you know all the players.
President Trump accepted Nikki Haley's resignation as ambassador to the United Nations. He appointed Haley just weeks after winning the presidential election.
So this is when she stepped down, and the New York Times says this is like the companion piece to the New York Times saying she left with her dignity. Bitch, please. Well, where's that video of hold on, we're gonna get back to that. Nikki Haley. She was like running around. Who did? I think. Oh, I hate Morning Joe, but I think I'm gonna play it. She was trying to get votes. Remember that? It's Morning Joe, but please excuse me playing. Kia, you'll love it.
The United Nations overwhelmingly voted yesterday in favor of a non-binding resolution condemning the United States' decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, declaring it null and void. 128 member states voted in favor, including several of America's closest allies, such as France, Britain, Germany, and Japan. 21 nations were absent and 35 abstained, including Australia, Canada, Mexico, and Poland. 9 nations voted against the resolution, many of which are tiny island nations in the Pacific, heavily dependent on American aid. Before the vote, several nations delivered speeches blasting threats made this week by both UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and President Trump, which some saw as a form of blackmail. This is America. The administration threatened that the U.S. would cut foreign and humanitarian aid to any country that voted against the U.S. Here is what Ambassador Haley said in a speech prior to the vote.
The United States is by far the single largest contributor to the United Nations and its agencies. When we make generous contributions to the UN,
she was out of her depth. She was out of her depth. She was out of her depth.
Have a legitimate expectation that our goodwill is recognized and respected. When a nation is singled out for attack in this organization, that nation is disrespected. What's more, that nation is asked to pay for the privilege of being disrespected. In the case of the United States, we are asked to pay more than anyone else for that dubious privilege. We have an obligation to demand more for our investment. The United States will remember this day in which it was singled out for attack in the General Assembly for the very act of exercising our right as a sovereign nation. We will remember it when we are called upon to once again make the world's largest contribution to the...
So she's threatening. She's trying to pull. This is the thing about Nikki. She keeps trying on different outfits, and they just never really work. So she tried to be Trump-esque and threaten on the floor of the UN. And I'm not even going to discuss like the vote itself, but the tactic she's employing here, right? She's really trying.
The United Nations. And we will remember it when so many countries come calling on us, as they so often do, to pay even more.
She doesn't get what the UN is. She didn't get her role at all.
U.S. ambassador.
Now this was the funny clip that to me was funny. It might not be funny, but she was trying to secure some votes. I think she was making appeals to like all these other delegates and whatnot.
Nikki Haley came here determined to thwart a resolution drafted by Kuwait that called for measures to protect the people of Gaza.
Not really focused right now on the decisions being made here, but more so Nikki Haley's behavior here.
She tried persuasion, going around other members of the Security Council. Here, as she approached the ambassador of Peru, she can be seen mouthing the word please. A warm greeting for Israel's ambassador, Danny Danon. He, surely aware, she also had procedural tricks up her sleeve. She wanted her completely rewritten version of the resolution classed as an amendment so it would be voted on first. There were heated discussions among ambassadors, but this month's president of the council, Russia, ruled against her. And things only got worse for Haley.
Yeah.
She pleaded with council members to support her draft resolution and reject Kuwait's.
We strongly encourage this council to vote against Kuwait's resolution and acknowledge the concerns of Hamas by voting for the U.S. resolution. Each of you have a choice. You either support Hamas or not. This vote will tell the story.
But the story that unfolded was not the one Haley wanted. When Kuwait's draft was put to a vote, it got 10 votes in favour. It only didn't pass because Haley had to use her veto. And then the second vote on Haley's own resolution. This is where all her tactics backfired. Her allies abstained, others voted against, and a moment of diplomatic humiliation. She was the only person to vote for her resolution.
I don't. And that's how you write the fucking story. That's the story. That's who she is, right? Not the soft shit that the New York Times gave her in another article, right? She was humiliated. And it wasn't just Al Jazeera, right? Other outlets, I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, other outlets did also characterize it as a humiliating chapter in her time as ambassador, probably largely why she stepped down. She was ineffective in role. And also, so you put that on top of, she was slipping out of Trump's favor as well. So whatever the New York Times wants to write about her leaving with dignity, nah, just because she stepped down before, she was humiliated in role. She wasn't good at what she did, right? I don't like her either. Womp womp. Exactly. Womp womp. Tell her what she went home with, Jim. We'll tell her what a consolation prize is, Jim. Well, you get a lifetime supply of magic erasers. I don't know. Right? It's just really. In her track record with the flag, the comments, we already went into that with the Twitter. We saw the story from WLTX 19 out in Columbia. So we get like she's not good at this. I don't know how to. Okay, she's not a bad politician. I think you can find an old Facebook post where I authored years ago where I said she's a competent executive. She definitely is a competent executive. I don't want to say that she's not built for national fucking politics at the fuck all. She's not built for it, but they keep like ramming the notion of Nikki down our throats, and it's just not effective. So what I want to do is we're probably going to go back and touch on a couple of these pieces. I wanted to get but we're going to show something that I've been eager to show for a minute, and finally remember my password for my Canopy subscription through the Richland County Public Library. Make sure if you don't have a Richland County Public Library card, go ahead and get one. And hey, you say, Mika, well, you live in Charleston County. How? $60 a year, worth it. $60 a year, worth it. You could cancel Netflix and just use Canopy and other, like, you really could. You can make an argument. So not only are you getting access to books, ebooks, audiobooks, by being a library card holder with either Richland or Charleston County, but with Richland County, you get so many apps and resources. It's not even funny. So yeah, your favorite periodicals, but also amazing movies with Canopy. We're going to get to one with Nikki Haley in the second. But I got to get this Mar-a-Lago story. Oh, it's the hyphen. That's why it's not coming up right. Mar-a-Lago, Nikki, begging and scraping. Just like she was running around that UN floor, bowing and scraping. Same thing. Going down to Mar-a-Lago. I'm trying to resist using some really bad framing. I do not want to read the New York Daily News. Let's do the Hill. Lesser of two evils in this instance. Haley has positive meeting with Trump, right? As a matter of fact, let me see. Yeah. No, that's recent. I mean, that's old. Positive meeting with Trump. Let's see. Oh, maybe there's a video in it. They always say they have a video and then it'd be like an ad for like, I don't know, something else. So we're going to, hopefully this is actually a video about the story. I can't even read the captions. They got to chill with these ads. I get it. Shit. They really want you to buy this liquor. All right, here we go.
Former President Trump and former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley met at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort last week.
Yes, KCJT.
Amid speculation, both are eyeing White House runs in 2024. Two sources familiar with the meeting confirmed to The Hill that the two sat down with one calling it, quote, positive. Neither source said what Trump and Haley discussed. The meeting was first reported by Politico. Haley served as Trump's ambassador to the United Nations from January 2017 until the end of 2018.
Okay, so that's the story in a nutshell. Later,
in a piece for the New York Post.
Ooh, Chris Cuomo. I think I might need to do Chris Cuomo segment on Mic'd Up. All right, so that was that, right? So now let's get to, again, we're kind of revisiting Haley's greatest hits, like her biggest foibles, right? She fucked up on the flag. She fucked up way before the flag came down. She fucked up there. She fucked up on refusing to expand Medicaid. She fucked up. Let me see if I can get. And also, we're gonna end it with talking about the race component and how that factors in to what Nikki Haley is doing, how she can sit at this table, how she's able to continue to advance her political ambitions, largely because she's tried to whitewash her own heritage. She'll whip it out when it aids her or when it benefits her, but she'll largely just erase it and wants you not to see her as a woman of color. She wants you to see her as someone that white men in power tolerate. And that's seriously, she's tolerated by the GOP. I'm talking about at the national scale. She might be a darling Nikki here locally or in South Carolina, but it looks like she's just tolerated elsewhere, and that's not enough to get you votes. So I think maybe she's putting her money on being Trump's running mate. Maybe she's thinking that help her kind of like win favor, like how Pence is still like was talking about running in 2024. I think people think, oh, if I stand in this role long enough, if I stand next to the stench long enough, maybe people will see me as just as viable as a Trump, right? I think that's what she's doing. I could be my analysis might be completely shit. But let's go. Let me use my Canopy app. So if you're gonna, just a heads up, if you had to go to work, if you had to go get the kiddos straight, if you got to go get your booster, whatever you're doing, if you go back and you try to revisit this part of the live stream and it might be muted or whatever, or edited out, just knows because I'm playing. I don't know. Sometimes I play. I'll play a documentary and nothing happens. Sometimes I play something completely like innocuous and it'll get muted. But just so you know, if you go back and your viewing experience is a little different, it's because I'm going to play from this documentary here. And I've been talking about this for a minute. Now, I remember when it debuted on ETV years ago, Wilhelmina's War, right? It debuted years ago on ETV and then it went behind a paywall, right? And I'm going to read the synopsis of this. There's two parts in this documentary that are very important. Now this is super small. Let me see. Oh yeah, it's real small. I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger so we can see the synopsis, right? Or at least I can read it to you. All right. It says, in much of America, progress in HIV/AIDS treatment suggests the worst is behind us. But every year, and again, this is from 2015, so right when I moved down here, but every year, 50,000 Americans are still diagnosed with the virus that causes AIDS. Astonishingly, it's one of the leading causes of death of African American women, right? I've known that for quite some time. And nearly half of the Americans with HIV live in the South. Let me say that again. Nearly half of Americans living with HIV live in the South, right? Where the AIDS epidemic has taken root in rural communities. Wilhelmina's War is an intimate personal narrative, y'all's heart-wrenching personal narrative that tells the story of one family struggle with HIV over the course of 5 years. Despite facing institutional and personal obstacles every step of the way, 62-year-old Wilhelmina Dixon works tirelessly to combat the stigma and care for her daughter and granddaughter who are both HIV positive, right? So this again came out in 2015, but there are 2 scenes in this documentary, and it's a like content warning like a motherfucker. It's really tough, really tough to watch. But there are 2 scenes in this documentary that feature Nikki Haley, which also give you a more sobering picture as to how she legislated, how she moved, what her political priorities were, and what you could argue what they still are. So I'm gonna come back to this latter part right here, right? Well, actually, let's. Shout out to Joe Neal too. I believe he makes an appearance in here, or at least we're gonna go to the late Joe Neal. His stance on his appeals to expand Medicaid when we have a governor who just basically turned down billions of dollars for just for political points. Yeah, Joni, you saw it too.
I just try to talk to her the best I can when she let me.
Let me turn this up.
I just go on. I wonder will she have a short life, a long life? And I wonder will, the way she live it make a difference?
Hold on.
Wilhelmina's insights always impressed me, especially when contrasted with Governor Haley's willful optimism.
It is a great day in Bamberg County today. I am so excited that we have so many good people here to lift up a community that I know is great.
Governor Haley's administration has pushed regional hospitals to do more outreach to families like Wilhelmina's. But when a local community health center put up an AIDS awareness billboard in the governor's hometown, she worried about its impact.
So this is who Nikki Haley is when it comes to the flag, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to labor organizing. This is who she really is. We can't ignore this, right? And so this is a billboard that went up back, I guess, again, they filmed this documentary over 5 years. So I don't know when this was up. Maybe y'all who have worked with organizations who are trying to get the word out about the HIV/AIDS epidemic in South Carolina, maybe y'all know when these billboards went up, but this one was in Nikki Haley's hometown. So it says county rankings for new HIV/AIDS cases in South Carolina, right? So this is probably prior to 2015. It says, what will you do to stop this? Your HIV status matters. Get tested. And it gives you the ranking. Hampton County is number 1. Bamberg County, number 2. Orangeburg, number 3. Richland County was number 4. Rankings per case rate, right?
Act on business.
Just drive through your community as if you were a CEO. We went to one area and they bragged about the fact that, well, they weren't bragging, they were trying to educate the fact that they were number 1 in HIV. Can't do that.
Why?
Because, and we've asked them to take that sign down because while I get they're trying to educate their community, a CEO is going to make a U-turn as fast as anything else, and we won't get any companies in
So she argued and campaigned for the billboard with the rankings that distill the issue quite clearly. She had it taken down. I guess they put up a more Haley-friendly billboard. But she argued on behalf of businesses. You've got a real epidemic going on, a health crisis going on, and you argued on this. You argued for the interest of businesses. It's just wild. It's just wild, right? Bossing say, I literally, yo, Joy, get out of my head. Literally, when I was trying to find a picture to use in the thumbnail, I found one to look, and it was Haley like in the middle of like a podium, and she had this really like forced smile, and I'm like, oh, she looks like she's like the Bossing Say lady from Avatar. Literally looked like that. I said, I ain't gonna use that one.
How does she think that make me feel? My daughter died.
Listen to Wilhelmina.
HIV, and they say I was born with HIV. I think the governor need education.
Yep.
About people and their families and how we supposed to love one another. And how I need to ask her, well, if somebody come up to your office and have HIV and fill out an application, would you hire that person?
I sent repeated requests for an interview with Governor Haley, but they were ignored.
Shout out to the filmmaker who got that Mary McLeod portrait in the back. That's so powerful. Another South Carolina native. She made her bones down in Florida, but we got to claim her. There's another part that I wanted to show. Shit. Where was it? I think it was 18. It's so much in here, y'all. And granted, it's an older, 2015, but it is so much. I think it was like so many familiar faces, so many sobering statistics. Let me see. Here we go. I think it's around here. Talking about the homophobia and the stigma. Here we go. The stigma attached to folks who are battling HIV/AIDS, who are living in the rural South with HIV/AIDS. And again, just want to outline or underscore who Nikki Haley is, what her legislative priorities were. Here we go. What her legislative priorities were and are.
Those individuals.
Oh, I think that's Joe Neal. I wanted y'all to hear that. Shit.
We lost not.
So this is when a governor refused to expand Medicaid.
Testing event in Williston.
Let's just watch it.
Community outreach has never been a priority for the South Carolina State Legislature. In 2010, money for HIV programs was practically eliminated.
2010.
We go to Columbia, South Carolina to talk with Democratic State Representative Joe Neal.
We lost not just the prevention,
R.I.P. Joe Neal.
We lost funding for the AIDS drug assistance programs as well. That leaves a number of people, several thousand, who will not have access to AIDS medication. Those individuals face some pretty tough times ahead.
Agencies that serve the poor and our schools have already taken huge cuts. The question
among those who supported the cuts was Republican State Representative Nikki Haley. She would soon be elected governor.
What that showed was the legislature's willingness to understand the value of a dollar and the willingness to understand you can't keep spending the way we always have.
Behind the cuts lay a political philosophy embraced by Republicans that government intervention is a bad idea.
Now look at this bullshit.
If you give consumers choices and empower them to make...
I don't know how this dude, I literally didn't remember him in this until I rewatched it the other day. I don't know how this dude gets credibility. I really don't. And he just says this bullshit, gutless, heartless shit about marketplace. It's like that rhetoric from when they were really fighting the Obamacare, the American, whatever, ACA. Like, this shit is really, really, really sick. Like, Will thinks I know he thought he spiked the football after he did this. I know he think he fucking nailed it, right? Probably gave himself a high five, right? Like, no, you didn't nail it. You're trash. These talking points are trash. I don't know how he's seen as a viable new. Oh, I know why. Because he performs a level of like people see like the product that he puts out. Let me not do that. The product that Will Folks puts out is refined, is well crafted. The content itself is abhorrent. His ideological spin is trash. Him falsely reporting that I tweeted terroristic tweets or share terroristic thoughts in the form of retweet, that's trash. Like, he's trash. Looking at elected officials' bodies on the beach is trash. Shout out Paul Bowers for putting that in my brain. I didn't know he did that kind of dumb shit. But yet he still, he did a whole hot or not with Nancy Mace and still gets his way into these documentaries from South Carolina. I don't get that. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then listen to this gobbledygook. I'm just going to rewind it.
Understand, you can't keep spending the way we always have.
Insidious.
Behind the cuts lay a political philosophy embraced by Republicans that government intervention is a bad idea.
If you give consumers choices,
and
empower them to make choices within a truly competitive marketplace, not a government-regulated, mandated, and controlled marketplace, you find that the diseases like whether it's AIDS, whether it's diabetes, you name it, I think we get far better outcomes.
You're not a doctor.
Outcomes
like,
was the state.
I don't know why. I guess they wanted a conservative point of view, the filmmakers did, but he's not a doctor. You can't, he's not an expert on, that's like asking me my opinion on it. I can tell you about my decision, why I made my decision for me. Like, if he answered that question as it pertains to his health care, but I want to talk, if you want to talk to a conservative that specializes in either they've either co-authored or written healthcare legislation. Maybe they have a healthcare background, like Senator Paul, like Rand Paul. Like, I'm not saying he's a great doctor, but I'm saying like that would make more sense to have somebody with a medical background say something. I don't know why they even got his opinion. You could have just went to. Like, that was just nonsense. I don't even know why he's in there. He basically said people make better choices. Yeah. And also when it comes to HIV/AIDS and other things, right? So like the more that the GOP in this state is, the more that they become familiar with those stats, like that Billboard stats that Billboard communicated, that actually deepens their resolve to reduce this down to personal choice, especially given the stigma around HIV/AIDS, right? That's not even people aren't even sympathetic. Not even just the GOP. The broad public is not sympathetic to people who are struggling with an HIV/AIDS diagnosis or status, right? And that's because of the stigma that's still attached to it, right? And so, when he talks like this major dog whistle, and this bullshit, empty rhetoric too. But let's get back to Nikki. Let's make it about Nikki. Hey, Anna, you just said there are no choices when people can't afford health care. And when you've closed 4 rural hospitals in South Carolina since refusing to expand Medicaid, right? With the black women, and infant, maternal mortality rates are deplorable. Don't tell me about no fucking choices in marketplaces.
Goal of the Affordable Care Act. President Barack Obama signed it 2 weeks after South Carolina
Nikki Haley.
state
this is her
legislators
legacy.
Cut community outreach funds.
South Carolina is not like any other state in the country. The issues that drive us on health care is not that we don't have good quality health care, it's that we have unemployment and poverty. We need to handle South Carolina in the way that we know that's best.
Left all that money on the table.
Knows that's best. Right now I have 10.7% unemployment. I need to increase jobs. I don't need to be increasing Medicaid.
The legislature's rejection of the Affordable Care Act devastated supporters like State Representative Joe Neal.
South Carolina would have received $11 billion. That would have been the third highest amount of any state in the nation. We turned it down. It would have created 44,000 jobs at a time when we have one of the highest unemployment rates.
So she talked about poverty. There you go.
We have perennial poverty, generational poverty, and it has a cumulative effect on children and communities. This would have been a big step in eliminating some of the impacts of that poverty, because lack of access to health care is one of the big ones.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that, fucking Fitz News? What the fuck? Like real stats, real statistics, real perspective on the issue, not some jargon that you fucking read on Breitbart. Like, get the fuck out of here. Stop putting Will Forks in shit. Stop putting him in documentaries. Stop platforming Tyler Bessinger. Stop talking to these people like they actually regular ass journalists that happen to be conservative some shit. They not.
The second one would have been lack of access to quality education. So those two things alone pretty much dictate the future of children in this state, in many of these areas. And this Affordable Care Act would have solved a big part of that.
Yeah, that's just when I moved down here. Land of make-believe. I really thought shit was a little different. I really did. Again, this was from Wilhelmina's War. This debuted in 2015. I saw it first on ETV, and I was so happy. I was trying to find it. It's behind a paywall. But if you have a Richland County Public Library card, or you already subscribe to or have a membership with Canopy, you'll gain access to this documentary and many more. Again, I'm just trying to plug you. I'm trying to plug library cards in general. But this is Canopy, y'all. So you can see all these like independent movies, documentaries, a lot of independent movies, right? I think it's only independent movies. Right. So a lot of, no, not only. But yeah, so hey, you trying to trim the budget a little bit, want to cut back on Netflix? It might not be as good as Netflix, but at least you'll have an option to oh my God, I love this movie. Love of the Proper Stranger. I'm not getting any work done today. I'll be watching that, Natalie Wood. All right. Anyway, what I wanted to do, I know I'm silly. What I wanted to do is really tie this up again. I said this when we first began. One thing with Nikki Haley, I think is important to do is to not erase, because she's working to erase her heritage. Her heritage really does factor in. I think there's a lot of folks here that just feel conflicted with talking about her Asian identity, and I'm treading lightly, especially look, I'm observing what's going on around me in my orbit, right? So today is the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. That has a very, very overwrought and violent history in terms of how we treated Japanese Americans following Pearl Harbor. I'm not centering myself, and I don't think, hey, I've got Asian friends is an adequate preamble to anything I'm about to say, but I just want to just give you insight into who I am. This is not anti-Asian. I'm not being anti-Asian. I'm trying to have a conversation about her complexity, and I guess I'm inviting my viewers to consume more content that talks about the model minority myth and how Nikki Haley kind of perpetuates or practices that or revels in that in some way. She uses it to her advantage. Also, I want to invite y'all to seek out conversations where Black folk, perhaps millennials or Gen Zers, are kind of having these really to me informed conversations about the model minority and why there hasn't been, or why there has been solidarity historically between Asian and African American communities, and why there hasn't been in a lot of ways that solidarity that we're looking for. I think that's important. We like to kind of sanitize Nikki Haley, and she wants us to look at her as like tofu. She's political tofu. She wants to be tofu. She wants to take on any flavors that she's standing next to. And I'm telling you that now you really can't afford to do that. And so I wanted to show a little bit of a conversation that's been led by millennials about that. But I also want to go back to YouTube and play something else about the model minority myth. And I hope, again, I'm proceeding with caution. And what I was going to say when I said I don't want to make this personal, I'm the aunt of both Chinese and Indian nieces. So having Asian nieces is important for me. We've had these conversations as a family. We talk about race. My nieces are biracial, so I have a half Chinese niece, and she has children, so they're part Chinese, part Puerto Rican, part black. My twin brother, his wife is Indian, so they're half black, half Indian. And so we talk about these things as a family, and I just wanted to kind of share that with y'all, just so you know where I'm coming from. Doesn't mean that I can't say fuck shit, and if I mess something up, go ahead and pull my coattails. Come on and tell me, yo, Meek, you got that wrong. But I wanted to talk about that part, because when we have a conversation about Nikki Haley, we love to erase her identity, and I think we can't ignore that. And I also want to talk about, so this is a clip right here from the Washington Post. It says, "Can a POC be racist? Colorism and the model minority myth." And I thought it would be interesting to posit right here in this conversation about Nikki Haley, how she governs, how she appeals, why she appeals to the GOP.
My mom bought me this skin white.
Yeah, so we're gonna play this, and you're gonna see a multitude of Asians. Oh yeah, Canopy with a K. You got it, D. Joy, before I hit it, you said, Joy, I think it does need to be talked about, and I think this is a good space, to address it, right? And
my mom bought me.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that.
My mom bought me this skin whitening cream that she got from China or something, and I was like, who are the people that's telling you that pale skin is beautiful?
When you look at novelas and when you're looking at Latin media and news outlets, all you see are white Latinxes. You never see any Afro-Latinx people
so it's not
being
just
shown.
It's not just Asians, it's Asians and Latinx folks. So, but you get we're gonna get to it, but model minorities is a part of this package.
As the protagonist.
It's been so ingrained, this want to be in proximity to whiteness,
yes,
to align ourselves with whiteness,
yes,
has been something that we have been exposed to basically from the moment we were born.
Today we're tackling how to talk about racism and colorism in non-Black families of color. I'm Nicole Ellis, and this is the new normal.
Because this is the magic trick. This is the magic trick that we see Tyler Bessinger use this. That guy Jimmy that attacked me on Twitter on Sunday. They look like that's not about skin color. It's about like their identities, right? Oh, I'm gay, so I can say what I want to say to you, you mouthy Black woman. That's my characterization of how it usually comes off. But Tyler and Jimmy, they get away with that. I'm gonna be real with you. This is where I'm gonna sound a little anti-South a little bit. I'm just gonna say it. But they can get away with that shit here because we're not having these conversations, because there's not these robust circles where we really talk about identity in complex ways. And there is a media void that me and others are trying to fill, where we have these conversations like, no, you can be gay and anti-Black and racist. You can be gay and you could be Asian, Nikki Haley. You could be Asian and anti-Black. And, so we got to stop with, oh, she's a representative from this community, so that means she's good to go. She's not going to be that. No, look at Tim Scott. You could be Black and anti-Black. You could be Black, Candace Owens, and be a tool of white supremacy, a willing tool, a token of white supremacy. So we need to kind of like, ain't no magic trick. Like, we need to stop. That's like me saying I'm a Black woman so I can say fuck shit about other POC. No, I can't. Talk about racism in non-Black families of color. Nikki Haley.
When you bring up Black Lives Matter with family members, how does that conversation go?
Whenever I do try to bring up these conversations, I'm very easily brushed off.
It comes across to them as sort of an attack.
It's like a defense mechanism, like, oh, you're antagonizing me. I've never done anything wrong. What do you mean? I'm Mexican. How could I be holding this privilege?
Right.
And it's very hard for them to see.
How can I explain systemic racism to my parents, especially considering that they are immigrants and they haven't grown up in the context of this country and knowing the history of this country?
Before diving into conversations about race, it's important to confront your personal relationship to colorism, racism, and the benefits of proximity to whiteness that you've experienced in your own life.
I remember a conversation that I had with a group of friends of mine who are also non-Black Latinas, and I said, "Am I white? Am I white passing?" And they were like, "Yeah, you're pretty white passing." And so I had a lot of discomfort just coming to terms with all of the ways in which I've been complicit in white supremacy within my own culture.
I wouldn't even
Modern
think she was
racism
Latinx.
is a byproduct of colonialism and the ways that it's incentivized putting a premium on whiteness over the past 500 plus years.
It was actually a survival strategy to be in proximity to whiteness. Our ancestors did survive by aligning ourselves with whiteness and marrying into whiteness. It can be really uncomfortable and it can bring up some shame.
Colonial practices like caste systems predate American slavery and can make it easier for families that emigrate to the U.S. to internalize false perceptions of both themselves and of others based on...
That's Nikki Haley in a nutshell. I'm gonna rewind it back. Joy, thank you for being candid and sharing your own personal personal details about you and your family makeup. It's real. It's real, and it's not exclusive to Korean families or it's not. It's not. And anti-Blackness pops up in black families too. Definitely in the South. We see still a lot of talented 10th behavior. I believe there's a young lady who started an organization called the Talented 10th. Like, I'm like, in the 21st century? Nicole, you just dropped in the chat. These are same conversations with my mom. She's an immigrant, right? She's an immigrant too. And then, so this part I'm about to, I just rewound. This is the part about the whole immigrant, the different perspective, because I see a lot with also with African immigrants. There's a lot of friction between African immigrants and the descendants of the enslaved that were brought here, hundreds of years ago. There's a lot of friction between those communities, and there's a lot of anti-blackness that is espoused from some black immigrants. Not all. I'm not starting culture wars. I'm not starting diaspora wars. But there's friction there, and I think it's worth examining. But that immigrant perspective changes a lot, and people tend to view Black Americans as almost like as people who can't get out their own way type of thing. But it's very anti-black.
Some shame.
Colonial practices like caste systems predate American slavery and can make it easier for families that emigrate to the U.S. to internalize false perceptions of both themselves and of others based on race, which in some ways paved the way for the model minority myth among Asian American communities.
It's this belief that Asian Americans, because they are hardworking and they follow the rules and they do all the right things, are successful.
It's a stereotype that started shortly after World War II to reconcile flaws in America's democracy, like Jim Crow laws, which completely contradict the idea of a truly free and equitable society.
Implicit in the model minority idea is that means there must be a problem minority. Whatever discrimination that Black people are facing, it's their own fault. It is inherently anti-Black.
A great way to initiate a conversation with a parent or a family member about race is to ask about their own experiences. And if it comes up because someone said something racist in real time, use it as a catalyst to ask more questions.
If you are deeply curious, it's very likely that at some point in their lives, they have experienced some form of oppression. Those conditions force us to see each other as rivals, that my prosperity necessarily depends on somebody's suffering.
Do you feel like a part of why you get so much pushback is because you bringing up injustice within another group somehow makes them feel like their experiences are invalidated?
They worked really hard to get to the United States and to, learn English and get jobs and be taken seriously by people here. So for them, when I say that Black Americans, they experience racism that's different, they think that I'm saying that there are things that they didn't have to struggle with.
Which is why it's really important to go into these conversations informed and empathetic to the fact that as a person of color, they've experienced racism too.
When we think about the pressures being put on parents, immigrant parents, Latinx parents who are Spanish speaking, who still may not have the resources, we have to really understand that we have been living within a racist system and racist institutions basically all of our lives.
But racial trauma and racial privilege are not mutually exclusive. You can experience racism and be racist at the same time.
Nikki Haley has Nikki Haley has definitely, the thing about Nikki Haley, and who we're talking about largely in this live stream, that I know she's endured gross jokes, mistreatment. I just know that she's been exposed to it, and yet she still has made a choice to actively be a tool of white supremacy. And so shout outs. Thank y'all for responding favorably to that clip. I'm glad you got it. What I'm trying to do here is just talk about the complexities that come with like this racial identity and how Nikki Haley specifically leverages, like she wants that. She strives for a proximity to whiteness, and she's gotten it. I mean, she's bowing and scraping at the foot of Trump down in Mar-a-Lago. So she's working hard to make sure that she's, the white male gaze is upon her, right? She covets it. She loves the warmth of the glow that comes with the white male gaze. But yeah, she's a tool of white supremacy, and she's made that compromise. It's the same compromise that Tim Scott has made as well. But we don't talk about that a lot here in South Carolina when it comes to Nikki Haley. We just talk about her abhorrent policy making and her, her foibles, but we don't talk about how she's willingly, we talk about it enough, how she's willingly made herself a tool of white supremacy and a token in her own party in a way that some other women would not do. I'm thinking about some other exiles. I'm not giving them a cookie, but in a way that I don't even think Liz Cheney does it with her queer identity. Let me take it back, way back, New Jersey, Christine Todd Whitman. She was, cast aside after 9/11 and EPA stuff and all that other stuff. But she wrote a book called It's My Party Too, meaning that she wanted to be seen as this moderate voice, and perhaps some people even thought Christine Todd Whitman, she's a former governor of New Jersey, y'all. Former governor of New Jersey. So a lot of people thought that, she was going to rise. She was going to be a new flavor of GOP. I think, I'm not saying Christine Todd Whitman was this paragon of morals and whatnot, but there are things that she wouldn't do. There's things that Liz Cheney wouldn't do, that Nikki Haley has no problem doing, especially when it comes to identity as either a woman or queer or whatever it is, right?
Example of
this is from the Grapevine. This is from beginning of the pandemic. It's titled The Relationship Between the Black and Asian Community. I know that I have y'all subscribing on my Patreon, but I also subscribe to Patreon content, and Grapevine is right now the only Patreon that I subscribe to right now, Grapevine. I think that the conversations that they have, Black-led conversations that they have from a millennial perspective, is so valuable. And they did this Black and Asian conversation, I think, in 2020, right when the pandemic popped off. And I just wanted to just play a little bit of the middle part of this conversation because it's difficult, but it's also important. And I love the Asian voices that they enlisted to talk about this. There were some tense moments in this conversation, but without struggle, there's no progress. I thought that the friction was not constructive. What's the word? Generative. I think it was generative conflict and not just destructive.
Hostilities between our communities, or it can be actually an opportunity for a lot of Asian American folks, I think. I got you, Joy. To understand and glimpse not exactly what it feels like for someone who's Black walking down the street, but a way of really thinking about the kind of racism and the kind of white supremacy that we have participated in as well. And it can be both of those things. Sorry, Swai, I think you were also in the queue to speak.
Right, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Someone said earlier that the folks who get all of the brunt of this are Chinese people. And I actually think that, well, first, that's untrue.
We're talking about the Asian hate.
Statistics that have been released.
So yeah, we're talking talking a little bit about the Asian hate that you saw Trump trafficking. You saw him, call it, I don't even want to repeat the stuff that he said about the coronavirus in China and its origins. It was all racist tropes, right? That don't bear repeating. So that's what they're talking about really right now a little bit, and it's going to veer off a little bit. I want to read the comment. Joy, you dropped in the comment in the chat. For me, I struggle now with how in my life I laughed at jokes that weren't funny and enabled white supremacy. I was raised to be polite and not say anything. And you're from here, right, Joy? Keep me on point. You were raised to be polite and not say anything, and I am figuring out the most effective way for me to work against racism. Yeah, you got to figure it out. It's seriously, and it's not easy, and there's no finish line. Born and raised in Charleston, right? So, and the reason why that was a relevant question for me to ask is because about that niceness. You were raised in Charleston. I wasn't, right? But I remember encountering that niceness and that politeness, and I could only imagine how your identity further complicates your relationship to the South and being a minority. I remember when I came down in 96 and I literally sat by myself in the lunchroom a lot of the times I did. And I remember coming into the lunchroom and literally seeing Black and white and very little brown. And when you saw the brown, not Black, the brown was oftentimes with, this is just my recollection of St. Andrews High School in the 90s. The brown or whatever POC would usually be with the white kids. And that wasn't how I grew up. It was just so different for me. It was a departure. I didn't grow up in Shangri-La. I didn't grow up in some utopian, I don't know why I said Shangri-La, but I didn't grow up in some utopian place. I just grew up where like, yo, my girl Naomi, Korean Naomi, and I'm only bringing it up because it's relevant. Like, me and her was on the shot put team in 8th grade. Like, we went to each other's house. Like, we had birthday parties, and it was a mad kids of color. Salman from India, and Jigmesh from Pakistan. Like, that was who we invited to our birthday party. It was just weird. And when we ate lunch in Sand Falls, it was like if you played sports, if you were gifted. But it really didn't. Of course, there were segregated tables and stuff like that, but it wasn't as stark. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go down memory lane, but I'm bringing it up because I remember like how flat race and culture felt when I came to South Carolina. I remember meeting the young lady. She was a classmate of mine. I believe her family owned the Hacienda places. I think she was POC. She was Latinx, I believe. And I remember just being like, wow, are there more of you? Like, where's more? And because it just was so like black, white, right? And it's just really weird, the decisions I believe that POC people probably had to make, like, ooh, where do I fit, and it's really tough. It's really tough in the South. I can imagine. It was tough for me. All right, let me stop talking.
Not just Chinese people that are being attacked, it's folks from primarily East and Southeast Asia. And I think that for one,
I'm about to wrap up.
The US has always had cultural perceptions of Asia as one thing and as one type of body, when in fact, like, there's so much nuance to this conversation. I think it's hard to even have conversations about Asian Americans point blank, because that's such a broad term. Right. As a Vietnamese person, like, I often get, I haven't got as much violence as other people because a lot of people think I'm a Latino in New York, or people think I'm Native American. And that shows, once again, that there's so many different ways that people conceptualize race, right? I want to speak to some of the anti-Blackness and Asian communities as well.
And we're going to leave it after this.
There's a history of Southeast Asian and Black American connection in the US when war refugees from Southeast Asia, primarily Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, were resettled in the US. They were thrown into poor Black and Latinx neighborhoods because the government didn't care about those neighborhoods. And they expected all of us to fight for the little resources that existed. And so you see basically multiple traumatized groups of people without enough space to live or exist. And so naturally there was competition and antagonism. And I think that's really important context, because there are certainly sentiments that harm people as individuals, but the government actually has a role in all of this, and that has to be named. I think with the model minority myth, there are definitely Asian people who have distanced ourselves from Blackness because we want to be accepted and rewarded by white America.
That's Nikki Haley.
The reality is that there's actually
Let me rewind it real quick. We're gonna wrap up soon. There's a couple more minutes I want to play here, but this is really important to hear.
And antagonism. And I think that's really important context, because there are certainly sentiments that harm people as individuals, but the government actually has a role in all of this, and that has to be named. I think with the model minority myth, there are definitely Asian people who have distanced ourselves from Blackness because we want to be accepted and rewarded by white America. But the reality is that there's actually tons of Asian people who are mixed race and Black. Like, there are Black Asians. And in fact, there are indigenous people in parts of Asia that are of African descent. So I say all that to say that it makes no sense to remove the struggle of Asian Americans and Black Americans, because they're connected. And if anything, I hope that Asian people in America see the treatment of Africans in China and see it as another way of motivating themselves
Africans in China
to be invested in ending anti-Blackness. Because when Black Americans are attacked, when Black people are attacked anywhere, we have to have the empathy to feel that as an attack on us too, because there's a bigger picture at stake. So I really hope for this sort of like emotional and spiritual shift in how we see each other, because it's not just politics, it's not just about bat soup, right? It's about the kind of world that I want to live in, and the kind of world that I see.
I wish I was this smart at that age.
I'm sorry, why is it a myth though? Is the model minority a myth?
I love this.
I mean, just
so I love this pushback. I love, and these two women right here have a podcast. It was just super dope. I'll share it on the next live stream. I'm about to wrap up, y'all, but I really wanted to wrap up on this next exchange. And you see a lot of the Asian panelists nodding, saying yes, it is a myth. And I know what the sister's trying to say. I think her name is Jay. Because it's the podcast is Queen with T, T with Queen and J. I think this is Queen and this is J. But like, is it a myth, or are people still trying to vie for, trying to curry favor with white supremacists? Like, and it is like you've got your Nikki Haley's, and then you've got people like and Joy. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but people like Joy who've chosen to, at some degree, to divest from, not some degree, to a large degree, divest from white supremacy, right? So you have some folks who have an Asian identity choosing to divest from white supremacist practices, and you got some that just say, you know what, I benefit from it. You know, I make money, I get notoriety, I have a higher profile, I can ascend to the highest heights of celebrity, political celebrity or otherwise, right? So I thought this pushback was really interesting. Again, generative conflict. Not all conflict is destructive and bad and not good. Some of the conflict actually is beneficial. For me, it was.
To ask, like, I know that there are portions of it. Yeah, you're never going to be a white person. You're never going to be granted full access. But I do feel like there is an alignment. There is a certain level of access that is granted to certain Asian groups of people, certain types of people, that is not granted to darker people or other people. So I just feel like there's a duality to that. But yeah, Kim or somebody, if you can.
Yeah,
please.
Can I just real quick speak to this? Because the model minority myth is actually something that was created and then strengthened by legal policy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So Japanese Americans were incarcerated or interned just for being Japanese during World War II. And they're the only group to have ever had that happen. Like, there was not even a guise of false criminality. They were just locked up. And then afterward, we had this move to really think about how do we create the image of the model citizen. And it was actually deliberately created because you see people who do not fit within that myth at all. Cambodian and Hmong people live at poverty at greater rates than Latinx and Black folks, right? So there's this idea that the model minority thing is like essential. It's inherent that we just have more money and more privilege at the same time that we see that population actually.
And like, for me as a Black person to just like to paint people with that brush, like, oh, they're the model minority. I don't do that. Right. Nikki Haley, I think it fits because of how she moves and how she also, like you said, this is strengthened by policy, historically strengthened by policy, but in contemporary terms, her the way she legislated also strengthens that whole model minority myth too, and you can make that argument. And what I like about this is that what she's saying is it's dangerous to paint all Asians with that brush, right? So let's just say there's someone that has a Hmong identity or from Laos or something like that, right? Because I managed a lot of people from Laos and Philly at one point. And I learned a lot about, certain working class families from Laos, immigrant families, Asians are not monolithic. That's the easiest way for me to say this. They're not monolithic. And so I think sometimes when Black folks don't see that solidarity that we just think needs to be there, right? And that should be there, that solidarity, like, hey, we're in this together. When we don't see that, sometimes some of us can just run to the convenient answer of old model minority. And I think what she just offered up was like, that's dangerous to do because we're not making those key distinctions between certain groups of Asians. And I think that's really important to see that. Joy, you dropped in the chat. I love the idea of this kind of conversation. I've had arguments with other Korean people about discrimination against Black people. We need to have these discussions. We do. And I think the way they set it up, again, there were some tense moments in here where I might have been doing my hair or something. I had to peek out the bathroom like, oh, what's going on? There were some tense moments there, but I think we just can't run away from those moments. And I think if you have the right community agreements in place, that you're able to discuss these things that demand nuance, that demand compassion, that demand patience, I think you can have these conversations. And I'm looking forward to having more of them, Joy. I'm glad you on board.
Being created by immigration policy in the United States. The United States has decided that the only Asian people who can come to this country should have a degree.
Yep. Yep.
Like that's it. They have to be highly educated and skilled. And so that's who we see, because when you look at Asia, it's not entire continent of rich people with, you know, master's degrees.
Right.
So the people who come here have been created by American policy to hold that kind of privilege. And then when we try to like do research on Asian Americans, we never talk about poor Asians. We never talk. That family in Texas that was stabbed was Burmese.
Yeah.
From we never disaggregate the data, so that when you look at it, like if you're a Vietnamese or a Cambodian young man in Richmond, California, you're getting picked up by the police as much as Black folks.
That's such. It was a really good conversation. A really good conversation, and there were certain panelists that was just that just really brought it, and it was really good. And I'm talking about the Asian panelists specifically. I learned so much just listening. But again, let me just tie it up in a nice little bow. Why Mika? I don't like political storytelling in this story, but I like the graphic a lot. Hold on, girls, you don't. Here we go. So like in the I want to just have this up as I'm talking. I wonder if I can open image in the tab. Save. Sometimes like I just like have it as a backdrop. Let me see. But like, let me stop being let me stop being silly. Let me go ahead and get offline and get ready to do my actual job, other stuff that I do. But I thought this was, I thought in the context of talking about Nikki Haley, what I thought was important to end it with an Asian conversation is, again, that's her identity. That's who she is. Right. And I think we need to talk about that complexity. I think it's worth talking about. When we talk about her decision making, I think it's worth talking about when we talk about where the GOP is headed, especially in the South, its strategy. It's no coincidence that both Nikki Haley and Tim Scott have been chosen by the establishment to continue on to try to vie for or ascend to the top of the political whatever mountain ladder. I don't know, whatever, right? And I think it's interesting to really look at how Nikki Haley weaponizes her identity, and also how when a brown woman, when an Asian woman, right, South Asian woman, proposes policy that is detrimental to her constituency, like what she did with refusing Medicaid expansion, $11 billion with a B dollars. When a brown woman is the architect or the messenger of these types of policies, we have to really do a deep dive into what that means and also what she's modeling, and we have to work against it and name it. I think there's power in naming that in the South, naming it and calling it out and challenging that perspective. And I really would love it. Well, we're going to get there, because I think with people like Fernando, and myself and other people who are in the media realm, in the media orbit, more diverse media, I think we're more poised to ask these tough questions in real time of our electeds or of our formerly elected officials. And I would love to see the press interrogate that more. Of course, Nikki Haley's not going to answer a question from me or Fernando, from whomever, about how, as an Asian woman, how does she feel about advancing, anti-Black policy. Of course, she's not going to get an answer, but it needs to be asked. And we don't have enough of that framing. And I'm not saying we need to make all of our objections about Nikki Haley. We don't need to center that in her identity. I'm not asserting that at all. I'm saying that we don't even broach it at all now. And it's just really interesting to watch this Asian woman out here acting as if, acting like tofu, taking on whatever flavor the white supremacist GOP put her next to. And yeah, I'm saying white supremacy a lot because it is what it is. So anyway, thank you, B-Man, for the super illuminating. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah. Grapevine conversation. Anna Marks, thank you for dropping in the chat. All right. I don't expect us to always agree with everything we say or everything I present. So if you didn't agree with certain framing, please hit me up. I appreciate it. I love feedback. Especially when it's when I know y'all are invested in my ascension. I love feedback. Don't be out there like, why you ain't on Snapchat? Don't do that. Get a lot of that bad advice through question asking. All right. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. All right, y'all. Keep an eye on Nimrata. Right? Normalize using her real name. Let me stop. She can use whatever name she wants. I go by Mika. My name is Tamika. I've gone by my middle name, so she can go by her middle or nickname, whatever it is. But she's still Nimrata. All right. I'll see y'all tomorrow, 8 a.m. bright and early. Bye. Appreciate you. Bye.